Hi there, I'm Shannon. My sister used to laugh at my quiet life. No husband, no kids, just work. She said I was selfish, cold. But behind my back, she was using my designs, my cabin, making $5,000 a month off what I built, while mocking me to my face. And when I found out, that was just the beginning. They broke into my property, forged documents. My own mother called me too dramatic. I kept quiet until I couldn't anymore. So I filed one lawsuit to end it all. But what really hurts? They weren't just stealing money. They were stealing me. And maybe someone in your family knows how to do the same. I didn't want to go. That was the truth I couldn't say out loud. When Mom called early Saturday morning, her voice syrupy sweet with that undercurrent of pressure she always layered in, I already knew I'd fold. I always did. Tobias watched me from across the kitchen table. Coffee mug paused halfway to his mouth. When I hung up, he didn't ask, just raised his eyebrows like, "So, we going?" I nodded. We pulled up to my parents' place in Asheville just before 2 in the afternoon. The driveway was a mess of SUVs and minivans. I could already hear kids screaming from the backyard, the kind of feral chaos that sounded more like a warning than a party. Tobias parked beside the Reynolds minivan, Jolene's, and we sat for a beat before getting out. I adjusted the hem of my linen shirt. Stupid choice for a cookout, but it had been a last-minute grab. Tobias took my hand for a second as we walked through the side gate, his thumb brushing my knuckles. Then the comment hit. "Oh, wow!" Jolene's voice cracked through the crowd like a beer can opening. "The childless queen finally blessed us with her presence." A laugh broke out. Real from a few cousins, fake from those who didn't want to look left out. I stopped in my tracks. Tobias gently pulled me forward, and I smiled, the kind that didn't touch my eyes. "You know me," I said, aiming for light. "Always fashionably late." But my chest burned. Not from the heat, not from the smoke rolling off Dad's overworked grill. This was the slow, sour burn of public humiliation wrapped in a family joke. Jolene had always had that tone, mockery with a bow on top. We found chairs near the edge of the yard. Tobias went to grab us drinks, and I sat with my sunglasses still on, watching kids toss potato chips into the kiddie pool. I heard it again, behind my back this time. "Must be nice, huh? All that free time with no diapers or daycare bills?" Another voice chimed in. "She travels for work, doesn't she? Fancy job. No time for family." I clenched my jaw so hard I felt it in my temples. My cousin Maureen, already tipsy, flopped into the seat next to me. "You and Tobias ever thinking of settling down?" There it was, again. I offered a tight smile. "We're settled, just not in that way." "Oh," she said, pausing. "Well, everyone finds their own path, I guess." The judgment oozed through her tone like sap from a cut tree. I looked around. Dad was half hunched by the grill, turning chicken thighs in silence. Mom fluttered between groups with her apron still on, pretending everything was perfect. Jolene? She was holding court at the patio table, sipping something pink and cold, while her husband Derek tried to corral their twin boys, clearly failing. I didn't stay long. An hour, maybe less. Tobias knew. He gave me the out before I could ask. "Want to get out of here?" "Yeah," I said. "Please." We left without goodbyes. Back at home, I kicked off my shoes and collapsed onto the couch. Tobias went into the kitchen, pulled 2 glasses from the cabinet. "I forgot to tell you," he said, turning his phone toward me. "Saw something weird online. Thought it looked familiar." I squinted at the screen. Airbnb. Listing title: Modern Mountain Escape for Creatives. Cozy and private. Photos loaded. My rug, my books on the side table, the exposed beams we'd restored last winter, and the caption: Designed by me, hosted by family, perfect for remote creatives. The host? Jolene Reynolds. I stared at the screen for what felt like minutes. Then I took the phone and zoomed in on the living room photo. She'd even used my tea tray, the vintage silver one from the estate sale in Hendersonville. "She's renting it out," I said flatly. "Looks like it," Tobias said. "Under her name. That's your place, right?" I nodded slowly. "I never posted it anywhere. I barely even told anyone we bought it." "She must have gotten in through your parents," he offered. "Maybe they said it was okay." "Maybe," I echoed. But I didn't believe it. Not really. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. It wasn't some sweet gesture or an accident. This was calculated. Jolene had used me as a prop, then claimed the spotlight. And the comment at the BBQ? It wasn't just a jab, it was a warning shot. I sat upright, went to my laptop, started pulling the Airbnb listing, screenshots, timestamps, checked the calendar, dozens of booked weekends. The price per night wasn't low either. She was making real money. I clicked Save Page A's more times than necessary. Each click made the blood in my veins run colder. Tobias watched me but didn't say a word. He knew this wasn't the time. I opened the cabin's deed file, the utilities, the maintenance records, all in my name, paid in full. Every screw and screw-up funded by me. She's not just mocking me, I murmured. She's profiting off my life. The bitterness wasn't new, but this clarity was. Years of swallowing it down, years of letting it slide. But tonight, something shifted. I used to call her my sister. Now she feels like a stranger in my life. 3 days passed. I'd buried myself in admin tasks, quiet nights, and avoidance. I wasn't sure if it was grief, disbelief, or just emotional hangover. Whatever it was, I hadn't spoken to Jolene since the BBQ, and I had no plans to. Tuesday morning came with overcast skies and lukewarm coffee. I sat at my desk, planning to finish a branding proposal for a boutique hotel chain in Durham. The client had seemed enthusiastic, until now. An email pinged just before 9 a.m. Subject, change of direction from Christina at magnoliareside.com. Hi Shannon, thank you for your time and recent submission. After careful consideration, we've decided to pursue a different direction for our design needs. Some elements of your proposal felt overly familiar. We've recently seen similar work circulating online, which raised concerns about originality. We wish you the best. I blinked, reread it, then reread it again. Overly familiar? I opened the attached reference, a link to an Airbnb listing. I clicked. Same muted palette, same wireframe style layout. The clean lines with handwritten warmth I'd spent weeks refining. Only it wasn't a corporate page. It was the cabin listing, Jolene's cabin listing. No, my cabin listing, my design, my structure. Every box, every headline, every call to action, every scroll behavior. She hadn't just rented out my physical space. She'd ripped the very skeleton of my professional identity and pasted her name on it. Tobias walked in, saw my face. What happened? I turned the monitor toward him without a word. He squinted, then looked at me. Is that your template? She used the exact same layout I built for the Smithson pitch, I said. My voice was flat, too stunned to rise. I showed her this last winter. She said she was just curious about my creative process. I remembered the moment now in full color. Jolene scrolling through my mock-ups on my tablet, nodding like she understood what she was looking at. This is cute, she'd said. You always make things look so polished. Wish I had your eye. Liar. You didn't publish that version, right? Tobias asked. No, I said. But it doesn't matter. I showed it to her in confidence. That was the direction I was evolving toward. He looked at the screen again, jaw tightening. This isn't just family drama anymore, Shan. This is your business, your work. She's crossing the line. My email inbox pinged again. A second client, smaller, more local, had also pulled out. Same phrasing. Concerns over originality. I felt like someone had cracked open my ribcage. I started digging. Opened Jolene's host profile. Found the update history. Scroll after scroll of marketing copy that mirrored my tone, my voice. Even the image alt texts were familiar. Reviews glowed. The branding is amazing. Whoever designed this really knew what they were doing. The creative vibe sold us. We even hired Jolene to help with our rental launch. That was it. That was the crack that snapped the foundation. She wasn't just stealing anymore. She was profiting in every direction. Off my visuals, my layout, my instincts, my training. She was building a personal brand using my brain. I stood, paced once, then sat back down and opened a blank spreadsheet. Screenshots, dates, URLs, version timestamps. I opened Dropbox and pulled the prototype I'd shared with her, exported it as PDF. Tobias reappeared, carrying his own laptop. I can help log everything. We'll cross-reference every review with her listing updates. If they match any part of your pitch, we log it. I nodded, swallowing the shake in my breath. She said she admired my work. She was watching to copy it. He didn't say anything for a while. Then quietly, What are you going to do? I stared at the wall for a moment, then back at the screen. She's not just taking from me, I said. She's building something with my name, my work, and my silence. This wasn't just about hurt feelings anymore. It was about theft, strategic, repeated, and hidden behind the shield of blood ties. And that shield was about to crack. The morning light barely crept through the blinds when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was too early for texts, too late to be spam. I turned over reluctantly, blinking at the screen. One missed call, one voicemail. From Mom. I hesitated. Then I hit play. Her voice came through warm, rehearsed, and full of that syrupy concern I'd heard since childhood. Hi, sweetheart. I know you've been distant, and that's okay. But whatever's going on between you and your sister, I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. Jolene told me a bit about it, but, well, the boys miss you. And Lily, she made something for you. The message ended with the sound of rustling paper. A photo followed seconds later. My niece Lily, barely 5, holding a crayon-scribbled poster that read, "We miss you, Auntie Sean." A knot twisted in my stomach. It was deliberate. Too deliberate. Jolene didn't text me. She'd gone straight to Mom, who had always known how to deliver guilt like a slow-acting poison. I sat up, brushed my hair out of my face, and stared at the photo. It wasn't Lily's fault. It never was the kids' fault. But I couldn't ignore how Jolene was now weaponizing them. Again. By noon, I was deep into damage control. Tobias and I had cataloged half the Airbnb reviews and 3 Instagram posts that mirrored my portfolio. My hands were cramping from the scrolling, but the worst hadn't come yet. The phone rang again. Mom. This time I answered. "Hi, Mom," I said flatly, resting my elbow on the kitchen counter. Her voice was sweet but slippery. "I'm glad you picked up. I was worried you might be avoiding me." "I wasn't avoiding," I said. "I just needed space. I understand, and I know you and Jolene butt heads sometimes, but she's going through a lot. Managing the house, raising 3 kids, and now all this extra pressure. She didn't mean to upset you. She told me everything was just a big misunderstanding." I said nothing. "Shannon," she added, her tone softening into a near whisper, "you don't understand what it's like. You're not a mother." My hand clenched around the phone. That phrase, the knife dressed as a bandage. "She's your sister," Mom continued, "and family forgives, especially when children are involved." I walked to the window, watching the leaves shift in the wind. My heartbeat was louder than her voice. "I never said I didn't care about the kids," I said, careful, slow. "I know, honey, I just mean, maybe if you had your own, you'd see it differently." There it was, the trump card, the moral superiority wrapped in motherhood. I had heard it 1,000 ways before, from cousins, strangers, even colleagues. But coming from her, it landed differently. "I'm sorry you feel that way," I said as calmly as I could, "but being a mother doesn't excuse theft." She bristled. I could hear it in her breath. "Shannon, don't turn this into something ugly. Jolene loves you. She always looked up to you, even if she doesn't show it right." A memory surfaced, uninvited. I was 10. Jolene had broken Dad's watch, one of the expensive ones he only wore on Sundays. I hadn't even been in the room, but when he asked what happened, she looked straight at me and said, "Shannon was playing with it." Mom's words that night still echoed, "Be the bigger girl. You're stronger than your sisters." That line had shaped years of silence. "Mom," I said, "I love you, but I'm not going to be the bigger girl this time. Because what Jolene did, that wasn't clumsy or accidental. It was calculated. And if she's overwhelmed, she should have asked for help, not taken what wasn't hers." There was silence, then a shaky breath. "So, what now? You're just going to cut off your family?" "No," I said softly. "I'm going to protect myself." I ended the call. I didn't slam the phone. I didn't throw anything. I just stared at the empty screen and felt something settle in my chest. A strange calm. Minutes passed before I opened my contacts and hit block on Jolene's number. The confirmation felt clean. Later that afternoon, Tobias came home. He set his keys down, kissed the top of my head, and asked if I needed anything. Instead of answering, I walked into the bedroom, pulled out the folder we'd built, screenshots, files, copies of client messages, and placed it in his hands. He looked at me. Are you ready? I'm done playing the role they wrote for me, I said. A few days after I handed Tobias that folder, Mom called again, this time with something more formal in her tone. We're having a little sit-down, she said. Not a fight, just a conversation. Everyone will be there, and I want you to come. Please, honey, just talk like family. I didn't answer right away. She kept speaking, as if the longer she stayed on the line, the more likely I'd say yes. I made your favorite almond cake, she added quietly. I agreed, not for peace, for closure. Saturday evening, Tobias drove me to my parents' house. He parked at the curb and squeezed my hand before I got out. You sure you want to do this alone? I need to look them in the eye, I said. This isn't about yelling anymore. This is about being heard. The living room was too quiet when I stepped in. No television, no music, no laughter. They were already there, waiting. Jolene sat smugly on the left end of the couch, legs crossed, her phone face down in her lap. Derek hovered beside her, arms crossed and jaw tense. Carlene perched stiffly on a dining chair dragged into the room, while Wendell lingered near the mantel like an extra in a drama he didn't want to be in. And Mom? Doris stood behind the coffee table with an apron still tied around her waist, trying to look composed, but her eyes bounced between us like she was afraid of setting off a bomb. Let's start this right, she said. No yelling, no blame. Jolene jumped in first. Look, I get it. You're mad. I made a few bad calls. But come on, Sean. You're single, no kids, good money. You really think it's fair to hoard all that space while we're struggling? Struggling? I repeated. I mean, the boys outgrew their bunk beds, she said. I thought it'd be okay to use the cabin here and there. And the Airbnb thing, I didn't expect it to blow up like that. But since it did, maybe we split it now? I stared at her. You want to retroactively split income from something you illegally listed under your name, using my photos, my furniture, my design work, and say that's fair? She waved a hand. Oh, come on, we're sisters. It's not stealing, it's family sharing. You really gonna turn this into a courtroom drama? I pulled out a printed Airbnb review and read aloud. Hosted by Jolene, beautiful design touches, such a creative space. I dropped the paper onto the table. That's not family sharing, that's impersonation. Derek scoffed. All this over a mountain cabin? Carlene mumbled. You always had a flair for drama, Shan. I looked at her, deadpan. And you always had a flair for disappearing when things got uncomfortable. Doris raised her voice just enough to interject. Girls, please. This is a family, not a courthouse. No, I said firmly, standing. This has been treated like a courtroom from the start. The only difference is, I didn't know I was on trial. I placed a manila envelope on the table. Here are the title documents, the tax returns, the receipts, screenshots of the booking page, timestamps. My name is on every bill. Yours isn't. Jolene opened her mouth. I didn't give her the chance. I've let things slide for years, I continued. You mocked me for not having kids, for choosing work, for living differently, and now you're turning that into justification to take from me? You say I don't understand family? Maybe you forgot what respect looks like. Nobody spoke. Even Wendell was still. This isn't emotional anymore, I said. This is legal. Do not call me again unless it's through a lawyer. I turned toward the door. Doris stepped forward. Shannon, wait! I stopped, just long enough to look her in the eye. I waited long enough. Then I left. 4 days passed since the family meeting. The house was quiet, but my thoughts weren't. Every time I walked past that manila envelope on the counter, it whispered back at me, you did the right thing. Then, early Tuesday morning, my phone buzzed. A Venmo notification. From Jolene, $300. Memo. First part, we'll keep paying. No call, no apology, no explanation, just a transaction and a text that followed seconds later. Hope that helps. Let's not make this legal. We're sisters, not enemies. I stared at it, teeth clenched. The money wasn't a gesture of goodwill. It was hush money, neatly dressed in emoji-free guilt. Tobias walked into the kitchen behind me and set down his coffee. What's that look? I turned the screen toward him. He read it once and let out a low whistle. Wow, she really thinks she can Venmo her way out of this? I didn't answer right away. She's testing boundaries, he continued. Send a little. See if you cash it. That's not an apology, Shan. That's bait. He was right. She was trying to sneak a new narrative into the legal storyline. One where she was the thoughtful sister just trying to make amends, while I, if I cashed it, became complicit in an agreement I never made. I grabbed my phone and dialed Charlotte, my attorney. Can accepting even partial payments imply I agreed to settle? Yes, she replied without missing a beat. And once that happens, they'll argue it's resolved. You cash that, you lose leverage. Message received. I hit decline payment and took a screenshot, then blocked Jolene on Venmo too. Later that afternoon, just as I sat down with my second cup of tea, another message came in, but this one wasn't digital. A real text from Carlene. Can we talk? Just us, no drama. She suggested a small coffee shop a few blocks away, one with string lights and windows that didn't close all the way in summer. I almost said no, but something in me needed to hear what she had to say. She was already there when I arrived, sipping a matcha latte like this was just any other ketchup. She smiled, but her eyes didn't match. I sat down. No small talk. What's this about, Carlene? She looked down at her cup, then back at me. I knew. About the cabin. Months ago. The words fell heavy. I didn't move. I saw her listing it online, she said. She even bragged about the reviews. I didn't want to stir things up. I figured it was temporary. Temporary? I asked. She made over $5,000 a month using my designs, my name, and you thought staying quiet was safer? She flinched at that. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I just didn't want to be in the middle. You know how Mom gets? If I said anything. I leaned forward. So silence is safer than standing up for me? Her eyes welled up. I didn't think it would get this bad. I took a breath, staring out the window at a couple walking their dog. You didn't think, and that's the problem. She didn't respond. For a moment, the air between us was full of everything unsaid. All the childhood birthdays skipped. The family group texts I was never part of. The times she could have spoken up, didn't. I'm not angry anymore, I said finally. Just done. Carlene bit her lip. I wish I had been braver. I stood, placing my coffee sleeve on the table. Wishing doesn't undo anything. I didn't hug her. Didn't offer a goodbye. As I walked out the door, she called softly after me. Shannon! But I kept walking. Because closure doesn't always come wrapped in apologies. Sometimes it's just knowing who will never have your back. A week had passed since that coffee with Carlene. I hadn't heard from her again, not that I expected to. Tobias and I were driving back from the grocery store late Thursday night when my phone rang. The caller ID flashed Lester, my cabin manager. It wasn't like him to call this late. I answered on speaker. Hey Lester, what's going on? His voice came through low and clipped. You sitting down? Tobias glanced over. I nodded, heart thudding. Yeah, what happened? The motion sensors flagged a break-in at the cabin. Just got the alert. 2 guys, looks like Derek and Wendell, cut through the gate and busted the lock on the back entrance. My breath caught. Tobias immediately pulled the car to the side of the road, engine idling. They what? I said, my voice sharper than I expected. I've got it on the security cam. Clear as day. You want to see it? I do. He texted over the file. I opened it while Tobias leaned over. The grainy footage loaded. There they were, Derek and Wendell, ducking into the frame like they owned the place. Wendell had bolt cutters. Derek kicked at the gate once, twice, and it gave way. They slipped inside like it was a routine errand. Derek even looked straight into the camera and flipped it off. They didn't even try to hide it, Tobias muttered. I stared at the screen as Wendell rifled through drawers, opened cabinets, like he was searching for something specific. Not just vandalizing. Looking. My stomach turned. Did they take anything? I asked Lester. I don't think so. I did a walk-through, nothing missing, but they definitely poked around. I nodded slowly, trying to keep my tone level. Call the police. File the report. I want charges pressed. You sure? He asked. Sometimes with family. This isn't family. This is criminal trespass. File it. After we got home, I opened my laptop and loaded the footage again, screen brightness casting long shadows across our dim kitchen. Every click, every freeze frame made the rage tighten in my chest like a vice. They crossed the line. No more justifying. No more softening the edges because we shared blood. Lester emailed the police report and video evidence the next morning. He added a note. Also, found something you should know. Attached was a background check on Derek, a previous charge from 2 years ago, breaking and entering in Sarasota, Florida, a plea deal, leniency because of family hardship, probation served, record technically sealed, but Lester's old connections in Brevard County still knew how to dig. That was the final nail. I printed the report. Then my legal file. Then every still image from the security video. Tobias came into the room as I laid everything out on the dining table. "We ready?" I didn't hesitate. "Let's go." We drove to the Asheville Police Department. It was quiet for a Friday morning. No drama, no emotion, just facts. At the counter, I spoke clearly. "I'm here to file charges for forced entry, trespassing, and attempted intimidation." The officer blinked, then gestured to a side room. Within 20 minutes, I'd handed over everything: time-stamped footage, identity of the intruders, proof of ownership, and documentation of the family conflict leading up to it. Marla, my lawyer, met us there halfway through. She brought copies of the property title, screenshots of text messages from Jolene, and outlined a timeline of escalating harassment. We didn't raise our voices. We didn't dramatize a thing. It was quiet power. Cold steel. Back home, I dropped the folder on the kitchen counter and stared out the window. They thought the cabin was just property. A pile of wood on a ridge. A weekend retreat. But for me, it was proof. Proof that I'd built something on my own, without a husband, without kids, without help. And now they were trying to pry that out of my hands. They broke the lock. But I wasn't the one breaking anymore. I was the one closing doors. 3 days after I filed the police report, I was in the middle of folding laundry, doing the kind of mundane task that grounds you when life starts to unravel, when Tobias came through the front door. He looked pale, shaken in a way I hadn't seen before, not even during the worst of the legal mess. He didn't speak right away, just stood there, frozen in the entryway, holding a manila envelope at arm's length like it was radioactive. "This was waiting for me at the site trailer," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. No return address. That was all he needed to say. He walked over, set the envelope down on the counter, and slid it toward me without opening it himself. I noticed immediately how jagged the handwriting was across the front, sloppy on purpose, like someone was trying to make it look untraceable, or unstable. I opened it. Inside were printed photos of the cabin, our cabin. But not just the usual angles from the online listings or the ones I'd taken for the civil case. These were different, more invasive. One was snapped from the tree line, another through the side window, and another so zoomed in, you could see the ceramic mugs on the kitchen table through the glass. They weren't just watching the property, they'd been near it, on it, watching us. And then there was the message. A single sheet of paper with mismatched letters cut from magazines, old school ransom note style. "You want to make this ugly? We'll make it uglier." For a split second, the room seemed to go silent. Not in a cinematic, dramatic way, just the kind of silence that falls when the air shifts, when everything inside you gets very, very still. I didn't scream. I didn't even blink. I just walked the envelope over to the kitchen sink, grabbed the pack of matches from the drawer, struck one, and dropped it in. Tobias watched in stunned silence as the flames curled the edges of the photos and the paper, turning them to ash. He leaned back against the fridge, arms crossed tightly. His voice was tight. "That was meant for me. They want you rattled," I said, watching the last piece disintegrate. "So I'll rattle back, with paper, not matches." I picked up my phone and called Marla. 20 minutes later, she was sitting in our living room with her laptop already open. No questions. She knew the drill. I showed her what had come, or rather told her. We hadn't saved the physical evidence, but the damage had been done. Emotionally, legally. She read over my notes and nodded. "It's a threat. Not direct enough to trigger a federal criminal response, but absolutely admissible in a civil suit. We'll enter it into the record as part of a pattern of harassment. It didn't feel like much, but it was something. A move forward. That evening, the skies opened up again. Rain lashed the windows in heavy sheets, and thunder grumbled in the distance. It felt symbolic. Storm inside, storm outside. I was rinsing out a mug when my phone buzzed. Lester. The reviews, he said without greeting. Some of them are gone. What? I asked, wiping my hands. What do you mean gone? Airbnb lets hosts flag reviews for takedown. If they're marked as violating guidelines, they can be removed by a moderator, or by logging in as the host. Someone got into the original host profile and pulled them. Same account, but the username's been changed. A dull thud hit my chest. You traced it? Yeah, he said. IP address is from Asheville. Want to guess who it's registered to? He didn't need to say it. I already knew. Jolene. I sent a group text to Marla and Tobias. We agreed to meet at Lester's office at his cabin the next morning. He'd already pulled up everything by the time we arrived. Side by side on his dual monitors were the original and the new Airbnb listings. The photos were identical. The listing description was nearly word for word, but the account name had changed. The new one read, Jensen Hollow Getaways, a made-up brand hiding in plain sight. But the email address tied to the account, it was still her Gmail. The same one she used for coordinating family birthdays and sending out potluck invitations. No attempt at concealment, just brazenness. She's trying to erase the trail, Marla said, scrolling through the metadata. Too bad we printed everything weeks ago. I zoomed in on the new host photo. It was a stock image, a generic smiling couple in flannel, clearly lifted from a Google search, poorly cropped, not even believable. Tobias let out a short, dry laugh. They're not even pretending anymore. No, I said, suddenly calm in a way that surprised me. They're just hoping we'll get tired or scared. And then, for the first time, I said it out loud. They went after him. I looked at Marla. This isn't just about me anymore. This is about the people around me. That changes everything. She nodded. Then we escalate. Formal civil suit, restraining order. We'll include the cabin's GPS data, camera footage, all communications, and the full timeline of listings. They want to play games? Let's play by the book and bury them in it. I sat there quietly for a few moments, letting it settle in. The old version of me would have hesitated, second-guessed, wondered if I was overreacting, but not now. They used to laugh at me for being too sensitive, for caring about aesthetics, boundaries, structure, my design work, my silence, my calm. But what they never understood is that my quiet wasn't weakness. That quiet had power. Back at home, I sat down at my desk and opened my email. I drafted a message addressed to Derek and Jolene's attorney. No emotion, no anger, just the truth. Your clients have 72 hours to cease all contact, digital or physical. Further action will include a formal lawsuit and public statement. After that, we go wide. No exclamation marks, no dramatic language. I hit send. Not in rage, not in fear. I sent it because I was ready. Because silence doesn't always mean surrender. Sometimes silence is strategy. Your paper lies won't cover my truth. It had been 5 days since I hit send. 5 days of silence. 5 days without a single reply, threat, or half-hearted excuse. And then, on a humid Monday morning, Marla called. I need you to come in, now. Her tone wasn't urgent. It was clipped. I knew that voice. It was her, you're not going to like this voice. By the time I arrived at her office, she had a manila folder open and her laptop screen filled with tabs. I did another sweep, she began, not even looking up. We cross-referenced some of the guest names from your old Airbnb reviews, the ones we screenshotted weeks ago. And guess what? She flipped the laptop toward me. The usernames were gone, not flagged, not hidden, removed. All these reviews were reported as harassment by the guest accounts, she said, adding air quotes. Except one of the emails attached to a flagged review also belongs to a burner Jolene used for Etsy years ago. I stared at the screen. My jaw tightened, but I didn't say a word. She didn't just steal from me, I said finally. She tried to delete me. Marla nodded. That's what makes it worse. It's not just fraud. It's revisionism. I leaned forward. She wanted to erase the record that I ever existed in that space. Like the design, the build, the years, none of it happened. She tried to edit reality, Marla said. But we kept the original script. Tobias texted mid-conversation. Mail came. You'll want to see this. At home, he handed me an envelope. The paper was stiff, freshly printed. Too fresh. It was a copy of a property deed, supposedly filed in Buncombe County just 2 weeks prior. It listed Derek and Jolene Reynolds as joint owners of the Breen Ridge property. There was even a fake notary stamp. I sat down at the kitchen table and laughed. Not because it was funny, because I was done being shocked. Marla's voice echoed in my head from earlier. They're not even being careful anymore. I scanned the document twice, then a third time. Then I flipped through my own papers, the ones signed over to me by my parents when they moved to Arizona, the ones filed with the county, the actual deed. Their version was a forgery, and a bad one. I called Marla. They're trying to pull a quiet title, she said immediately. They're hoping you'll freeze, and they can use delay tactics to buy time. Instead, I filed a formal suit. Early the next morning, I walked into the courthouse with 2 folders, one filled with original purchase receipts, wire transfer statements, maintenance records, and insurance history. The other, copies of the forged deed, metadata from Jolene's fake Airbnb host account, and the takedown request trail. The woman at the window raised her brows. You brought the whole house with you. I handed her both folders. No, just the foundation. She flipped through the pages. You've got a strong case here. I didn't smile, not out of coldness, but because this was business now, and I was done making this personal. That afternoon, I drafted one final letter with Marla. Not a cease and desist, not a plea, just truth. You've removed reviews, erased credits, forged ownership claims, but truth isn't paper. It's in every tile I laid, every paint stroke, every signature you copied, and you will never make it yours by pretending I wasn't here. I didn't send it to crush them. I sent it to finish this, on my terms. 10 days after the courthouse, Asheville felt quieter. The heat broke for a while. The phone didn't ring. For once, the only mail in my box was catalogs and bills, until a small padded envelope arrived, addressed in blue ink I recognized without needing to see the name. Carlene. I turned it over in my hands, expecting some last desperate apology or maybe a final plea to keep this out of the courts. But inside was just a folded letter, 3 pages, written neatly. No bargaining chips, not even a request to reply. I sat at my kitchen table, sunlight spilling across my hands as I read. She didn't defend Jolene or their choices. Instead, she wrote, We all saw you as different. You chased what we never dared. Maybe we envied you, maybe we feared what it meant, but you stood up and we let you stand alone. That was wrong. She described memories, childhood holidays where I played by myself while they joked in clusters, family chats where my name rarely showed up, how silence became its own ugly choice. Carlene didn't offer excuses. She just admitted she failed to do right. I read it twice. The apology wasn't loud, but it was honest. It didn't fix the damage, but it named it. And that was something. I folded the letter, tucked it deep in my desk drawer, and left it there. Sometimes, closure isn't about answers. It's about no longer needing them. A few days later, Marla called. It's done. They've accepted the settlement. Full damages, no trial, and they've signed the cease and desist. You'll see the transfer in your account by Monday. There would be no headline, no spectacle. The public feud that Jolene seemed to crave never came. Just a few signed documents, money moving quietly from one account to another, and a final digital block that brought no satisfaction, just peace. I kept the cabin, but I didn't want its ghost clinging to every holiday, every weekend. So I put it on a long-term lease. No more Airbnbs, no more family reunions in Breen Ridge, no more waiting for an apology from people who never planned to give it. Doris called me one afternoon, her voice softer than it had ever been. You sound different, Shannon. Calmer. I smiled, not that she could hear it. That's because I chose peace, Mom. This time I didn't choose guilt. She didn't argue. For the first time in a long time, she just listened. We hung up, and I felt lighter. That weekend, Tobias and I loaded up the car for a drive west. Santa Fe, open highways, just the two of us. No Wi-Fi, no work calls, no family drama waiting in the notifications. Somewhere past Amarillo, I pulled out my old journal. The pages were blank, but my mind wasn't. I started writing again. Not stories about revenge or anger, but reminders of the strength it took to walk away. Not every ending needed fireworks. Some endings needed only a closed door. Peace, I learned, isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of boundaries. Of knowing that your worth doesn't depend on who apologizes or who refuses to change. Sometimes people break things to be noticed. Sometimes they stay silent so nobody rocks the boat. I chose something else. I spoke up. And I'm still standing. There was a time I believed setting boundaries meant I was being selfish. That if I stood my ground, I'd come off as the bad guy. I worried that speaking up for myself would drive people away. That love, friendship, or family ties were too fragile to withstand the truth of who I was. So I stayed quiet. I shrank myself. I compromised to keep the peace. But over time, I learned something no one ever taught me growing up. Peace isn't silence. Peace isn't the absence of conflict. Real peace comes from living in alignment with your truth, even if that truth makes other people uncomfortable. If you've ever been told you're too emotional, too quiet, too intense, or too different, let me say this clearly. Those aren't flaws. They're not mistakes you need to fix or parts of yourself you need to erase to belong. Sometimes, the very traits others criticize are the ones they secretly admire or wish they had. And in the end, no one can take away what you've built from honesty, hard work, and self-respect. For me, this story wasn't just about reclaiming a cabin. It was about reclaiming space, my right to exist fully, to take up room without apologizing, to speak without softening the message for someone else's comfort, to stop negotiating with people about whether or not I'm too much or not enough. That space, physical and emotional, became sacred. It reminded me I didn't need anyone's approval to feel grounded in who I am. And honestly, that realization came with a cost. I had to make some hard choices. I had to walk away from familiar places and faces. I had to choose myself in rooms where I used to disappear just to keep things calm. So let me ask you, have you ever had to choose between your family and your mental health? Between keeping the peace and keeping your voice intact? Between their comfort and your truth? If this speaks to something in you, drop a K in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. Or just hit 1 inch if this hit close to home. And if it didn't, that's okay too. I still want to hear your story. What keeps you quiet? What makes you feel seen? If anything I said lit a spark in you, if it gave you clarity, courage, or even just a sense that you're not alone, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I've got more stories like this, and I think we might be walking some of the same roads.
Hey everyone, I'm Athena. I might be a bit older than most of the people here, but I've got a story you might find interesting. It's about how I got back at my ex-husband, Kingston, and his mom, Mary, nearly 8 years after we split up. Yeah, I'm single now. My marriage and divorce really shook me up, so I'm not in a rush to jump back into dating. But I'm feeling pretty good about getting even with Kingston and Mary. I met Kingston through a friend at work. He was my friend's cousin, and we hit it off at one of his family parties. At first, Kingston seemed like a great guy, charming and sweet, even though he didn't make a lot of money. I thought he was a good person, so I decided to give our relationship a shot. Things were amazing at first. We were like the perfect couple, always together and crazy about each other. But as time went on, Kingston started acting strange. Instead of being affectionate, he started making weird demands. He said, "Why do you live so cheaply? Athena, you make plenty of money, but you never spend it on us or yourself. I'm surprised your friends even want to hang out with you. You don't meet their standards." I replied, "I've told you before, Kingston, just because I earn more money doesn't mean I should blow it all on fancy things. I have plans for the future, and I like saving up for them. It's not about hiding money. I just prefer to be responsible with it. You're just being selfish and not sharing with me, he accused. That's not true, Kingston. I do treat you sometimes, and I don't ask much in return. I defended myself. Well, it's not enough. I want a better life than this. I don't think I can be with you if you're going to be so stingy, he said, hurting my feelings. His words stung, but I started to doubt myself. Maybe I was being unfair to him. After all, I did earn a lot more money than he did. So I thought maybe I should spend more money on him. I bought into that idea and went along with it. I was happy with him for a while, and we even got married. But foolishly, I ended up paying for most of the wedding myself. I also ended up covering more than 70% of our household expenses. At the time, I thought I was just doing it for my partner. I never imagined I'd be taken advantage of like this. A few months after we got married, Kingston's mom moved in with us out of the blue. She just showed up with her suitcases and declared, "So, Athena, you must be surprised to see me here. Well, I'm going to live here from now on." I was shocked. Wait a minute, Mary. Who said this was okay? You can't just barge into our house and make decisions like this. But Kingston brushed it off, saying, "Calm down, Athena. I invited Mom over. She'll be staying with us now. Why are you being so dramatic? It's just my mom. She can't work forever." But we never talked about this. Kingston, why would you decide something like this without discussing it with me? He replied, "Look, you earn enough money to take care of the three of us." So, without even considering consulting me, Kingston insisted that his mom living with us was my responsibility since I was the one with the money. He basically said he didn't need my permission to bring her into our house. I was really mad at both Kingston and Mary for disrespecting me like that. But I felt stuck. Our house was rented in both our names, even though I was the only one paying the bills. Kingston hardly ever had any money to contribute. In the 5 years we were together, he never once bought me a gift. Now, I'm not saying I need fancy presents, but his lack of effort in our relationship really bothered me, especially after we got married. And on top of all that, I was stuck footing the bill for his mom, who didn't even help out around the house. One day, I couldn't take it anymore. I vented to a coworker about Mary and Kingston, and I noticed his expression change. It was clear he was hiding something. When I pushed him for more details, he dropped a bombshell. Kingston had a gambling addiction and had even lost his previous job for stealing money to fuel this habit. I felt like my whole world was crashing down. At first, I didn't want to believe it, but then he sent me screenshots of their conversation, including pictures of Kingston gambling with other girls around him. It made me feel sick to my stomach. I went straight home and confronted Kingston. I said, "I know all about your gambling, Kingston. I also know you got fired from your last job for stealing. What's wrong with you?" He scoffed. "Oh, please, Athena. Not everyone wants to be a middle-class worker like you. I'm going to make millions from gambling. I'm getting pretty good at it. Soon we'll be rich." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You're out of your mind, Kingston. How are you even getting money to gamble with?" He replied, "Oh, your savings account had some cash in it. Came in handy for my games." I was stunned when he admitted to stealing from my savings. One betrayal wasn't enough. There was another one coming. I had no clue Kingston was secretly dipping into my hard-earned savings. It devastated me. Started yelling at him for touching my money. I had worked tirelessly for years to save it, and now it was all gone because of Kingston's gambling. As we argued, Mary came over to see what was happening. Not surprisingly, she took Kingston's side. She said, "My son is smart. He'll make it big through gambling. You're fighting with him for no reason. Your money is his money, and he can spend it as he pleases." I was livid. No, absolutely not. That money was earned through hard work and sacrifice. It contribute almost everything to the household. I didn't even know Kingston lost his job. He stole my money to gamble and pretended like he still had a job. Don't talk about my son like that. He's doing you a favor. You're not capable of being successful on your own. Only Kingston can make something out of his life. You're useless, she retorted. You've got some nerve calling me useless when all you've done is use my money. Neither you nor your son have helped me this past year. I've shouldered the family on my own, and this is what I get in return. I'm done with both of you. Kingston is just a failure who will never amount to anything in life. I'm leaving. That's when I made up my mind to divorce Kingston. Despite loving him, the betrayal was too much to bear. Plus, I couldn't stay with a man who had no qualms about using my money for gambling. Truth be told, I had been feeling weary of our marriage for a while. I knew Kingston would never change. He had proven that to me. So I made the decision to file for divorce. But getting a peaceful divorce turned into a nightmare. My ex tried everything to make me stay, from begging to blackmailing me about splitting my assets and paying alimony. His mom joined in, harassing me to reconcile with Kingston. It took months of legal battles for my lawyer to convince him to drop the alimony and asset-sharing demands. I threatened to press charges for stealing from my bank account, which finally made him sign the divorce papers. In the end, I lost a lot of money because of his gambling habit. But that didn't stop Kingston and Mary from hurling one last insult my way. They said, "You haven't won, Athena. You're nothing but a worthless witch. You might be earning a lot now, but one day I'll be richer than you, and you'll have to beg me for money. We won't forget this insult, Athena. You abandoned my son and me when we needed you. One day, you'll pay for it. Mark my words, Athena. Kingston will be more successful than you." I replied, "Let's wait and see what happens. A day will come when I'll make you eat your words. We'll see who ends up begging." After the divorce was finalized, I left my job to start fresh in a new state. I didn't want to be around Kingston's cousin anymore. Got a new job offer with a promotion, making it even more appealing. Over the years, I saved diligently, working hard and climbing the corporate ladder. After 8 years, I had enough savings to invest in the company I worked for. Following a meeting with company executives, I became a director. It was like a dream come true. Meanwhile, I heard Kingston continued his gambling habit and lost whatever little money and assets he had. He and Mary were moving to my state to escape their creditors. Kingston ended up marrying a wealthy heiress, Riley, whose father was a business associate of mine. Kingston complained about Riley and was suspicious of his new son-in-law. He also resented Mary and considered her a freeloader. I kept quiet, knowing it wasn't yet time to confront Kingston. I was leading a good life until I received an unexpected call from Mary. She informed me that Kingston had applied for a position at the company where I worked. I was curious to see if it was finally time to give Kingston his just desserts. Mary's call confirmed it. She gloated about Kingston's new life, saying, "Hello, Athena. This is Mary. I hope you haven't forgotten me." I replied, "How could I forget my dear mother-in-law, who mooched off me for 3 years and helped her son steal my money? Long time no see, Mary. What's this about?" Mary continued, "Remember how you called my son a failure? Well, he's married to a beautiful girl and found a new job that pays him $120K per year. My son has become successful. It's your loss." I couldn't help but laugh. Her words were so ridiculous to me. Most of what she said was a lie, but she didn't realize I already knew the truth. She seemed quiet and confused when I finally calmed down enough to respond. "First of all, dear ex-mother-in-law, Kingston only earns $60K a year. There's no need to lie. And yes, I already have all the information about him," I said. Mary seemed taken aback. What do you mean? Are you accusing me of lying? And who told you he earned 60K? No one had to, Mary. Do you want to know how I found out? My assistant interviewed him yesterday. I replied. Mary protested. That's impossible. There's no way you're related to the company. It's a big enterprise, and you're just a worthless woman. Well, here's some news for you, Mary. I'm a director at this company, so I know exactly how much Kingston can earn. And by the way, you're bold to assume he even got the job. I retorted. Mary tried to defend Kingston, saying he's smart and wouldn't have trouble getting the job. I countered by telling her that my assistant had placed him at the bottom of the candidate list, just like 8 years ago. No sane company would hire him with his record gap. I also hinted that I would inform Kingston's wife about their deception. Mary's demeanor changed completely. She started begging, saying Kingston had contributed to my success, and asking me to give him the job. I couldn't help but laugh at her request, considering everything they had put me through. I told her firmly that I wouldn't help Kingston. He was capable of ruining his own reputation, and I wouldn't vouch for him, not even professionally. I ended the call, and despite Mary's continued attempts to reach me, I didn't respond. Instead, I instructed my assistant to send rejection letters to all the unsuccessful candidates. Then I waited for Kingston to call me, knowing he would have my number from Mary. Kingston called me within an hour of receiving the rejection letter. I answered because I wanted to witness his humiliation firsthand. He sounded desperate, nothing like the arrogant jerk I divorced. What do you want, Kingston? I see my dear ex-mother-in-law gave you my number already, I said. Athena, I know you're one of the directors at the company I interviewed for. I just got the rejection letter. Please, do something. Help me get the job. I know you can help if you want to, he pleaded. I scoffed. Why do you think I would jeopardize my professional life for you? Do you think I'm crazy? You have some nerve to ask me for a job after all these years. He continued, Look, I know I didn't treat you right back then, but I was still your husband. We have some good memories. Please consider those and give me the job. My wife, Riley, will leave me if I don't get a job soon. I know you've lied to Riley about your financial situation. I interrupted. Guess what, Kingston? I know her family. Have her number from her dad. All I have to do is tell the truth, and she'll be free. Kingston went silent after hearing this. I knew I had struck a nerve. He immediately begged me not to tell Riley everything, but I hung up on him. Next, I texted Riley and asked her to call me. When she did, I introduced myself and explained the situation. Hi, Riley. My name is Athena, and I'm your father's friend. I also happen to be the ex-wife of your now husband. There are a few things you should know about Kingston. He's been lying to you. I began. What do you mean, Athena? What is he lying about? Riley asked. He's not as rich as he claims to be. He has absolutely nothing of value. You posted on Facebook that he got a 120K job, but he only applied for a 60K job, which he didn't get. I revealed. What the hell are you talking about? But he told me. Riley trailed off. I know what he told you, Riley, but I've seen it on your Facebook. I know you might not believe me. I said calmly. You can ask your dad. He can easily find out if Kingston is lying. I suggested to Riley. But I don't understand, why would Kingston lie to me? She asked. Because he wanted to take over your inheritance and properties. He always wanted a luxurious life for himself, and he's a gambler. I explained. Unfortunately, we divorced because I refused to fund his lifestyle and support his gambling habits. His mother supports him. Anyway, I don't know what he told you, but that's the truth. You can ask around if you're doubtful about me. I don't want you to be stuck with a liar and a loser. Thank you for telling me, Athena, I'll dig for more information and find out, Riley assured me. Also, don't worry. I made him sign a prenup and only agreed to remove it once he gets a job. Looks like that won't be happening after all. With that, I finished my part of the revenge. The aftermath was glorious. Mary and Kingston initially kept calling me, begging for my help, while Riley uncovered the truth herself. Riley and her dad confronted him and then filed for divorce. Since Riley still had the prenup in place, none of her assets would go to Kingston. Instead, he would have to hire a lawyer to work through the divorce. Mary and Kingston continued harassing me until I threatened to expose them online, which made them stop contacting me. Last I heard, Kingston still comes by our company to see if there's a position open. I also heard from sources that Mary and Kingston are now constantly fighting about money problems. I guess now Mary will finally know what it's like to be stuck with a man-child for the rest of her life. The police suddenly announced, "We've urgently transported a child found in the car. You're under arrest." Shocked by the unexpected arrival of the police at my home, couldn't believe what I was hearing. "What? I don't have a child," I responded in confusion. The officers seemed equally puzzled. They had identified the car's owner through the license plate, and it was indeed registered under my name. Could it be? Holding on to a suspicion, I rushed to the hospital where the child had been taken. There I saw a boy around 5 years old lying on an emergency bed. His face was red and rough, but my heart pounded wildly at the sight of his familiar face. From that moment on, my life changed dramatically with this child at the center. I am Emily, a 33-year-old who works from home. I started dating my husband Michael in college since we were in the same club, and we married after graduation. Despite being married for 10 years, we couldn't have children. We even tried fertility treatments. I learned that I had a condition making it difficult to conceive. My kind-hearted husband, Michael, reassured me, saying, "It's okay, let's live happily just the two of us." My in-laws are nice people, and since my brother-in-law already had a child, they never pressured me. However, I felt bad for my parents, who were looking forward to their grandchildren. Fortunately, since I lived near my parents, I made it a point to visit them frequently. I also have a younger brother, John, who is 7 years younger than me. If only John had a child. Growing up, John was perhaps spoiled as the youngest child and started hanging out with bad influences around middle school. He claims it was because our parents compared him to me, the smarter and more accomplished older sister. From my perspective, our parents treated us equally. Regardless, John rebelled and caused a lot of trouble. At 20, he declared he was cutting ties with the family and left home, disappearing without a trace. Since then, I haven't seen him. Sometimes I browse old photo albums and reminisce. I'd often reminisce about the days when John, as a toddler, would toddle after me, calling me sis. One day, while working from home, my doorbell rang incessantly. Panicking, I checked the camera and saw the police standing there. The police suddenly announced, "We've urgently transported a child found in the car. You're under arrest." Shocked by this abrupt statement, I was at a loss for words. "What? I don't have a child," I replied, just as baffled as the officer. My mind was filled with questions. According to the police, a passerby noticed a car abandoned on the road with a limp child inside and reported it. The child was then transported by ambulance to the emergency room. When I asked about the car's location, they said it was in front of my parents' house. Unfortunately, my parents were away on a trip. The police had identified the car's owner from its license plate. While the car was indeed registered under my name, the person using it was my younger brother, John. I used to lend my car to John when he got his license, and he took it when he left home. Since then, The car had been left in front of my parents' house, only moved when it needed inspection and maintenance. Despite scolding him, my parents felt pity and took care of the vehicle's upkeep. Thinking that he might need it, I wondered who this child left behind in the car could be. Hurrying to the hospital, I approached the bed in the emergency room and saw just the top of a small head peeking out from under a blanket. The curly, wavy hair instantly reminded me of someone. My heart raced as a childhood memory of John flashed before my eyes. Getting closer, I saw the face of a boy around 4 to 5 years old who looked strikingly like John. Could it be? As I was pondering this, I received a phone call from my mother, who was away and sounded panicked. John called and asked me to take care of his child. He said he left the child in the car because we were not home under this blazing sun. What should we do? I informed my worried and panicking mother that the child had already been taken to the hospital and seemed likely to survive. She seemed relieved and said she would be back soon. I understood my mother's feelings, that there was no time for a trip now. I knew this child was my brother's, but when was he born? And who is his mother? I explained to the police that the child was probably my brother's and decided to stay with the child. After that, I tried calling my brother several times, but I couldn't get through to John. Looking at the child, he seemed to be in pain. It was heartbreaking to see such a small body enduring so much suffering. At that moment, a nurse came and handed me the clothes the child was wearing after changing him into hospital pajamas. They were ragged and severely dirty, with the name Tom written on the tag. From his extreme thinness and the state of his clothes, it was easy to imagine that Tom had been raised in a miserable environment. That evening, my mother returned from her trip and rushed to the hospital. "John," she murmured, hugging Tom with tears flowing. Tom looked a lot like John. By the next day, Tom's condition had improved, but he still seemed very scared. I gently asked him, trying not to frighten him, "How old are you, Tom?" 5 years old, he answered, spreading out one hand and adding his fingers. "Wow, you speak so clearly." I praised him, stroking his head. He smiled for the first time, but he still seemed thin, pale, and small. According to the doctor, there were bruises all over his body. I persuaded the police to let us take responsibility for the child until we could contact John, and we somehow avoided a report being made. 3 days later, Tom was discharged. I didn't want to dress him in his tattered clothes, so I bought new ones and had him changed into them. He looked even more intelligent and cute in them. Finally, as we were leaving the hospital, I got through to John, but there was tremendous noise on the other end of the call. How could you leave him in the car under the blazing sun? "He was taken to the hospital," I exclaimed. "He survived, didn't he? So it's fine," John replied nonchalantly. "He had bruises all over his body." "Did you do this?" "Thomas is clumsy. I was just disciplining him," John retorted without a hint of remorse. "He's only 5 years old. He's just a child," I said, my voice shaking. "He can't even remember the letters no matter how many times I tell him. It's annoying. So I thought I'd leave him at our parents' house," John continued, shocking me with his harsh words. "I'm in the middle of a casino jackpot right now," he added, before hanging up the phone. Seeing my distress, Tom looked worried and began to shed silent tears. "It's going to be okay," I said softly, stroking his head. He was only 5, a time to be selfish and cry. But he didn't. It felt odd that he never called for his daddy or mommy. Imagining the reason made my heart ache. After discussing with Michael and my parents, we decided to look after Tom in our home. I made a kid's lunch with hamburgers and fries, decorated with character flags. When I placed it in front of Tom, his eyes sparkled. "I've never seen anything like this. Can I really eat it?" he asked. "Of course, I made it for you," I replied. I loved the way he ate it, with ketchup all over his mouth and a big smile on his face. In the evening, Tom played around in the bath with Michael, laughing and enjoying himself. At night, I would read him picture books while lying next to him. He listened intently with sparkling eyes, but would suddenly look at me with an anxious expression. "Can I stay here forever?" "Don't want to go back home anymore," he asked. "I get it. You want to stay here, right?" I said. Tom nodded with relief, and it was heart-wrenching to see him that way. As the days went by, he became even more attached to me and Michael. When I was folding laundry, Tom would come over and offer to help. When I went shopping, he tried to carry my bags with his little body. Living together, I realized he was a kind and wonderful child. Michael and I grew so fond of him that we started discussing adopting him, especially if John and his partner weren't planning to raise him. When I checked with the city office, I found that my brother and his wife had registered Tom's birth and that on the certificate of residence, the parents and Tom were listed as living at my parents' house. We started consultations at the family court about a month after we took in Tom. Then John and a young woman came to visit. "Hey, thanks for taking care of Tom." "Oh," John said. "I don't want to go back," Tom exclaimed, hurrying to hide behind me. He must have had some frightening experiences. After years without seeing him, my brother looked more aggressive, and his clothes were unkempt. The young woman with him, who introduced herself as Risa, wore numerous piercings in her ears and nose and looked flashy, like a playgirl. "How did you know where I live?" I asked. I asked Mom. "By the way, sis, you're living in a nice house and having a great life, huh? I have something to discuss regarding Tom. Let me in." I didn't feel good about it, but I couldn't refuse when it was about Tom. According to my brother, he had married this woman shortly after leaving home. They had been moving around frequently, and there were times when they lived in their car because they had no place to stay. While looking around my house, my brother suddenly got to the point. "I heard from Mom that you don't have any children, right? You've been married for 10 years with no kids, so you probably can't have any, can you?" "What are you trying to say?" I asked. "We've got a great idea. If you want Tom, how about it? But it won't be for free." I was stunned by the audacity of him trying to sell his son for money after having tried to leave him with our parents because he was annoyed. I was burning with anger. "John, what do you think your child is? He's not an object." "What?" "Things so high and mighty." "I became rebellious because you're too serious. Our parents always sided with you. It's funny how you blame our parents and me for your own lack of success." "Shut up. Just give me the money," John demanded, enraged. John raised his hand to hit me, but at that moment, Tom, who had been hiding behind me, stepped forward and spread his arms to protect me from John. Seeing this, I became even more determined to protect Tom. Selling a child for money was unthinkable. However, I decided to give John and Risa the $13,400 I had saved as a settlement. I also had them sign an agreement that they would never get involved with Tom again and obtain their consent for the adoption. Risa remarked, "It's refreshing not to have to raise such a troublesome child," surprising me with her coldness. Once the procedures were completed, the two took the money, smirked, and disappeared. And so, Tom truly became our child, and we completed the necessary legal procedures. The following days were nothing but happiness. Tom grew up healthy, and we, as a couple, spent our days filled with smiles and joy thanks to him. During this time, we noticed Tom's talents and wanted to nurture them. However, another incident occurred 15 years later. Once again, my younger brother and his wife came to visit. John had grown a scruffy beard, his hair was messy, and he looked rather thin. Although he was only 41, he didn't look it. The woman also had no makeup and was wearing dirty clothes and torn plastic sandals. It was immediately apparent that they had fallen on hard times and were living a rough life. I had a bad feeling, as their visit couldn't mean anything good, and my reliable husband Michael was out at work that day. "What brings you here?" I asked. "I need some money," John replied. "Why should I give you any money?" I asked, surprised. I thought Tom was just a stupid brat, but he got into a prestigious university's medical department, didn't he? John said. It seemed he had met someone from our neighborhood in a local tavern and heard about Tom. In reality, Tom was very intelligent. He had been top of his class since elementary school and even got into a prestigious medical school straight out of high school. "That's no longer your concern, is it?" I said. "It's a big deal. He's my son, and since he's such an excellent son." "I thought I'd take him back," John said. "What?" I exclaimed in shock. John smirked and said, "If you don't like it, give me the money. How about you give me $33,500? John demanded. "Sister, didn't I already give you $13,400 15 years ago?" "That's a different story. I can't give you that money," I said firmly. When I refused, John grabbed my collar and threatened me, asking if I wanted to get hurt. I felt more pain in my heart than in my body, looking at my thoroughly rotten brother. At that moment, someone shouted, "Stop it," and grabbed John's arm. It was Tom, who had grown into a sturdy 20-year-old. John was easily subdued and ended up lying face down on the floor. John's wife, seeing the grown-up Tom, said sweetly, "You've grown up. I'm your mom. I've wanted to see you." But Tom firmly declared, "My only parents are the mom and dad of this house. I remember the horrible things you did to me when I was just 5. I experienced love the first time when I came to this house. You are not my parents." Even after hearing Tom's words, the two didn't seem to give up. So I showed them the agreement we made 15 years ago. The agreement stated, we will have no future involvement with the child. If we do not comply, we will be sued. You've broken your promise. I'm calling the police, I said. They were visibly shaken, making excuses that they had completely forgotten about it. Actually, we are being pursued by debt collectors. Without $33,500, we're in deep trouble. So don't be so cold. Help me out, sister. You are rich, aren't you? John pleaded, his earlier threats now turned into begging. I can't help you. The moment you abandoned Tom, you severed ties with me too. I have no brother anymore, I replied coldly. Please, he pleaded. But I coldly rejected him. Helping him now would only encourage him to continue his behavior. As I was about to call the police due to their insistence, they reluctantly left. Later on, heard that the couple had been caught shoplifting and seemed to be in jail, leading a miserable life. Meanwhile, Michael, Tom, Anna continued to live a peaceful and happy life. Seeing Tom, who wants to become a doctor to help those suffering from illnesses, makes me really happy. Thinking about it, we were able to live every day with laughter thanks to Tom. We hope to continue living happily together.
The man I was going to marry, Tom, said something troubling right before our wedding. Women should just take care of the house and children after getting married. A wife should obey her husband, right? This was during a TV show about successful businesswomen. I decided to marry him, but I kept a secret plan. Tom kept telling me, make sure you listen to what I say. The man of the house is me, don't talk back. His old-fashioned ideas about men being in charge became more obvious. He said all the housework, childcare, and even taking care of others were my jobs. He wouldn't accept anything less than my best. When I asked what would happen if I failed, he laughed and said divorce. Then he mentioned I'd owe him $660,000. I asked how I could pay that. He said, I have no choice but to obey him. Tom was in for a surprise. Before we got married, I kept a big secret from him. I owned 3 buildings. So when he talked about $60,000 like it was a lot, I told him I could easily give him $6 million if needed. He didn't believe me. When we eventually divorced, I decided to pay him that $6 million. Tom's attitude changed completely. He begged for forgiveness. My name is Julie, and I turned 34 this year. My husband, Tom, is 10 years older than me. Because I lost my father when I was young, maybe I saw a bit of my late father in Tom. We met through a friend. Julie, you like older guys, right? My friend asked. There's someone at my workplace who might be your type. Want to meet? Sure, I'll give it a try, I said. That's how I met Tom. He was 10 years older but looked young, and we got along well. Thanks for coming to see an old guy like me today. I enjoyed our conversation. Would you mind meeting again? Tom asked. Yes, I'd like that. After just a 2-hour dinner, we felt a special connection. We started meeting weekly. After 6 months, Tom proposed, and I said yes immediately. Are you sure about me? He asked. Of course. Tom was incredibly kind. I felt spoiled by his attention. As time passed, I started thinking about marriage. Then my mother called. She needed to talk to me about something. Julie, my father used to run a construction company before he passed away. It was a big business, but after he died, it went to my uncle, who was the vice president. My mother inherited my father's real estate properties and asked if I could take over managing them. She looked exhausted, and it was hard to say no. You're the only one I can rely on, Julie, she said. But what do I need to do? I don't really understand. It's okay. I'll teach you step by step, I assured her. I agreed to help because it was my mother's request. As I officially took over the real estate, Tom proposed to me. I was thrilled and accepted immediately. But things changed after we got engaged. One day, while watching TV at my house, Tom made a troubling remark. Women should just stay at home after getting married and take care of the house and children. A wife should obey her husband, right? Yeah, I guess, I muttered, caught off guard. The TV was showing successful businesswomen, highlighting how married women contribute to society. But I'm working right now, aren't I? Oh, I forgot to mention, but you'll quit your job, right? Tom said casually. What? That's obvious, he added. I was confused because he had never shown such an attitude before. Then Tom made another comment that shocked me. I hate women who have unnecessary assets like that woman on TV. Why? I asked. After getting married, it's normal to support your husband, right? He replied. His words made my heart race. Tom then mentioned meeting my parents, leaving the decision to me. After Tom left, I called my mother immediately. Tom and I are planning to visit you soon, I told her. We'll be expecting you. My mother said about the inheritance I recently received. If you want to keep it a secret from Tom, that's okay. I was scared to think about what would happen if Tom found out. I felt trapped because I had already accepted his proposal. Apart from this issue, I thought Tom would be the ideal husband. As time passed, Tom's views about women became more extreme. Make sure you listen to what I say, he told me on the first day of our marriage. His old-fashioned ideas about male superiority got stronger. I'm the man of this house. Don't talk back, he said. By this point, I had quit my job and become a full-time housewife. I wasn't planning to talk back anyway. Good, Tom said. From that day on, I became more cautious around Tom, always following his lead. However, something joyful happened in the midst of this life. 4 months into our marriage, I discovered I was pregnant. You're pregnant. Well done, Tom exclaimed. Thank you. Now I'm going to be a father, I said. Tom was very happy, and seeing him like that made me smile too. During my pregnancy, he took care of me, and I thought this wouldn't change after giving birth. But then things shifted. Now that our baby's born, make sure you do all the housework and childcare, Tom said. What? Aren't you going to help? I asked. I work. Everything inside the house is your job. Okay. I was speechless at how much Tom had changed. With a newborn baby, I couldn't argue much. We named our baby girl Lily. True to his word, Tom barely participated in childcare. The only time he got involved was when friends visited, and that was just for appearances. "Have you been neglecting the housework lately?" Tom asked sharply. "No, I'm doing everything," I replied. Tom stood up from the sofa, walked to the window, and ran his finger along the window frame. "How is this being done properly?" he said, noticing a slight dust on his finger. I'd almost wanted to retort, feeling like he was a nagging in-law. "I never thought you'd be a woman who couldn't even do this properly," he continued. "Lower your voice, please. Lily will wake up," I whispered. "Don't talk back to me," Tom said, raising his arm threateningly. Just then, Lily started crying, and he stormed off to the bedroom. I picked up Lily and spoke to her gently. "Did you help me?" "Thank you," I said, and she soon stopped crying. This moment made me decide to protect Lily no matter what. Tom and I talked less, but one day he came home smiling. I tentatively asked, "Something good happened?" "Yeah, kind of. My mom's health is improving," he said. His mother had always been frail and often hospitalized. I thought it was just another update about her, but it was more serious than I expected. "Mom's coming back home, but I'm still worried about her," Tom said. "That makes sense." "Hey, don't talk like it's someone else's problem. You're going to take care of her," he continued. "Take care of her? You mean you want me to look after your mother?" I asked. "You catch on fast," he laughed. "At least once a week, go check on her. I've already told her." "This is so sudden. You're not planning to abandon her, are you?" I asked. "Of course not," he replied. I had no choice but to agree, since the message was already conveyed to my mother-in-law. The next Saturday, I went to her house with Lily. When we arrived, my mother-in-law greeted us with a smile. "Welcome, Julie. Sorry to make you come all this way," she said. "No problem." "How are you feeling?" I asked. "Thanks to you, I'm doing well," she replied. "That's good to hear. I brought Lily today," I said. Although I was upset about Tom's unilateral decision, I didn't dislike my mother-in-law. Time with her became a precious respite for me, and it seemed to be the same for her. Our bond deepened after I started visiting her regularly. One day, she suddenly apologized. "I'm sorry, Julie." "Why the sudden apology?" I asked, surprised. "It's about Tom. If you're unhappy, you can leave him," she said. "What?" I never expected such words from her. Though I never complained about Tom. Perhaps she sensed something from my expressions. "I can tell, even though you don't say anything. I see my younger self in you," she continued. My father-in-law had passed away from an illness about a year before I got married. I had never met him and knew little about him, just vague stories from Tom. "You had a hard time too, didn't you?" "Back then, it was even worse," she replied, smiling but with a hint of regret. "So what's it really like with Tom?" "Well," I hesitated. "That reaction means it's pretty bad, huh?" she sighed. "Don't hold back, it's just us here." So I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. "I had no idea it was this bad. What should I do?" "It was like a life consultation," she said. "Like I said before, don't suffer in silence. I don't want to see you in pain." "Thank you," I said. That conversation made me seriously consider divorce. "You can always talk to me, and of course, I won't tell Tom," she assured me. Most people would naturally take their son's side, but she was different. Perhaps she sympathized with me because we shared similar experiences. It felt good to have her support. When I got home, Tom was drinking. "Hey, you're back. I'm out of booze. Go buy some." "I need to put Lily to bed first," I said, heading to the nursery. "Your husband comes first," he yelled. Turning around, I saw him throw the beer can he was holding. I didn't have time to dodge. Fearing the can might hit Lily, I instinctively shielded her. They can hit my back, but fortunately, I wasn't seriously injured. "What if you hit Lily?" I demanded. "What? It's your fault for being there. I just threw it." You're the one who got in the way, he snapped. I glared at him and walked away, overwhelmed with anger. Is this what a husband and father is supposed to do? I thought. Suddenly, he barged into the room. Get me booze now, or who knows what'll happen, he threatened, staggering, clearly drunk. I reluctantly agreed, fearing his wrath if I refused. Okay, I'll go now. Thanks, he muttered. I went to a liquor store and returned to find him asleep on the sofa, snoring. I wondered what I was doing for such a man. The only good thing about marrying Tom was having Lily. The joy of our first meeting was long gone. I needed to talk to my mother-in-law soon. As usual, I visited her on the weekend. We had a great time, but when I returned home, Tom was furious. Confused, I asked why he was so angry. Why are you so angry? You know why, the hospital called. What did you do? He shouted. What? I did nothing, I replied, bewildered. Don't lie. My mom collapsed and was taken to the hospital. That can't be true. She was fine when I left, I said, confused and speechless. Tom hurled more insults at me. Why do you think I sent you to take care of my mom? She was fine when I left the house, I insisted. You think you can fool me with that lie? Tom retorted. I'm not lying, I said, increasingly frustrated with Tom's accusations. Fearing for my daughter Lily's safety, I have been considering asking for a divorce. Housework, childcare, and caregiving are your jobs, right? I won't tolerate anything half done, Tom said. I've been trying my best and will continue to do so, I replied. You're not doing a good job even now, Tom mocked me. So what happens if I can't do it? I fought back. It's obvious, isn't it? Divorce. And of course, you'll owe me $60,000 in alimony, he said. $60,000. You can't pay that now, can you? You have no choice but to obey me. Why $60,000? It's because of my mom, and besides, you're causing me trouble. It's a fair demand, he claimed. But Tom was greatly mistaken. I was not without money. In fact, I had assets hundreds of times greater than his. Before getting married, I had hidden the fact that I owned 3 buildings. I thought there was no need to hold back any longer. Don't talk about meager amounts like $60,000. I could give you $6 million, I said. What kind of joke is that? You can't pay that much. Are you crazy? He asked. You'll see if we get divorced, I said firmly. Are you serious? You'll be the one in trouble if you divorce me. We'll see about that, I said. The next day, I took Lily and left the house without saying anything to Tom, who didn't try to stop us. I went straight to the hospital where my mother-in-law had been taken. Are you okay? I asked. Julie, you're here. Tom told you I was in the hospital, didn't he? She asked. Yes, he did. Tom exaggerates too much. I've never been strong to begin with, she laughed it off. I felt a bit guilty for feeling relieved. I came today for another reason. You've made up your mind, haven't you? She asked, as if she already knew. Yes, I decided yesterday I couldn't bear it anymore and left this morning. I think that's good. You look more lively now. Really? I asked, surprised by her support. I felt I could share my long-hidden secret with her. I fully support you, Julie. I've made up my mind as well. I was nervous about her reaction. Taking a deep breath, I told her, Actually, I've been hiding something from Tom. Hiding something. Tom always thought I had no money because I didn't work, but that's not true. What do you mean? I inherited real estate from my mother. I'm the owner of 3 buildings. I braced myself for criticism, but her reaction was unexpectedly positive. Wow, that's amazing. No need to hide that. But with Tom. Oh, I see. Tom's views on male superiority were extreme, weren't they? Yes, I realized it might be a problem. But by then, I had already accepted the proposal, I explained. It's hard to say no in that situation. But you're going to tell Tom, right? Yes. I know it's weird to say this in front of you, but no need to be reserved now. Just do what you feel is right. Her words cleared any doubts I had. I planned to reveal everything after the divorce to make him regret it. That's great. I'd love to see his face then. After talking it all out with my mother-in-law, I went back to my parents' house. My mom accepted everything without question. I left Lily with her and started preparing for the divorce. 2 weeks later, the divorce was finalized smoothly. Tom didn't say much then. 3 days later, he confronted me. "What did you do?" he demanded. "What do you mean?" "My account. There's an insane amount of money in it." "Oh, that. It's the alimony I promised you. But $6 million is unbelievable." I had actually transferred $6 million to him. To me, $6 million wasn't a significant amount. I owned luxury condominiums worth millions each unit. "Don't worry, it's all my money." "That's crazy. If you can't believe it, come to this address. You'll see for yourself," I said, giving him an address before ending the call. About 30 minutes later, I saw him approaching. It was unmistakably Tom. "I've been waiting for you." "What's at this place?" he asked, looking around. "Just look around." He looked around. We were standing in a plaza surrounded by 3 buildings. Just a bunch of condominiums. Yes, these luxury condominiums. They're mine. "So, what? You live here?" "No, I own these condominiums." "Owner?" He still didn't seem to grasp the situation. "I've been quiet about it, but I inherited them from my mom. So yes, I own these apartments." "You, owner of luxury condominiums?" He looked shocked. "That's the truth, believe it or not." "Since when?" "Just before you proposed." "You hid this all along? Why didn't you tell me?" "You might not remember, but you were always saying things like a wife should obey her husband and women shouldn't have money. For that reason, I decided not to tell you. That's a big deal for me." He looked frustrated, but arguing seemed pointless, so I decided to end the conversation. "Well, it doesn't matter now. We're divorced. It's none of your business anymore." "It does matter. You deceived me, so you owe me." "I already gave you $6 million. That's not enough. Give me more." "There's no way I'm giving you more." "Oh, and you should take care of your mom, right?" "I know that without you telling me." "Good, then we have nothing more to talk about." As I was about to leave, Tom called out to me. "Wait, just hear me out." "Is there more?" "I really want to go home." "It'll be quick." "Then make it quick, please." "Do you have any intention of starting over with me?" "No," I answered immediately. Tom's prideful nature meant he could only speak in a condescending tone. "If you wanted to start over with me, you'd need to change your attitude first, though that's probably impossible." Tom seemed to be thinking deeply, looking down and then looking up. He said something completely different. "Please, let's forget the past. Lily needs a father, doesn't she?" "Lily will be fine without a father. She probably doesn't even recognize you as one." "That might be true now," he admitted, looking defeated. "But I truly regret everything," Tom pleaded. "I'm not fooled by such acting. You just regret losing the money, don't you?" "No, it's not like that. I mean it." Tom begged me, but I was tired of it all. "I have no expectations from you anymore. Goodbye." I left, laughing. Looking back, Tom hadn't moved. Such a foolish man. He will probably live his life filled with regret. Later, I called my mother-in-law. "Hello, Julie. What's up?" "I actually paid Tom, but I have a favor to ask." "I understand. Leave it to me." By then, my mother-in-law had been discharged and was back at home. I asked her to make sure Tom used the money for her house's barrier-free modifications and living expenses. Due to his pride, Tom ended up giving her an amount exceeding $2 million each month. A friend also told me about Tom quitting his job, bragging about having received money. He seems to have quit his job. Really? Yeah, he's been telling people it's because he came into some money. Oh, I see. Did you have something to do with this? Well, just a little. Of course, such actions were unlikely to lead to anything good. He's spending it all on gambling, alcohol, and women. Hardly anything is left now. He truly became a worthless person. Just the other day, He came to my house asking for money. Really? But don't worry, I didn't lend him anything. What is he even doing? It's embarrassing to admit he's my son. Thank you for everything. I'm counting on you in the future. Lily and I moved to one of my luxury apartments. Our life was comfortable, and she was growing up healthily. I still keep in touch with my mother-in-law, and it seems like we'll continue to enjoy our lives.
Divorcing you was definitely the right choice. You and your child are still just as sad as ever. I make $200,000 a year now. It seems like my ex-husband just wants to brag about himself. He doesn't even bother to ask about how we're doing. Oh, by the way, let me introduce you to someone. Hey, come here. This is my new wife, Harriet, he says, introducing me to his new spouse. What on earth is he thinking? Are we done here? Well then bye, I say, trying to leave. Wait a minute, he says, blocking my path again. Are you just jealous because we look happy? Just because you're poor doesn't mean you have to be so twisted. You'll end up even more miserable, you know. He assumes that I'm unhappy. I'm past feeling angry and now just feel disgusted. While I stay silent, my ex tries to say something else. But my son Johnny interrupts. Mom, can we fire this guy? Hi, my name is Lisa, and I am now 42 years old. I married George, my co-worker at the same company, when I was 26. I continued to work after we got married but quit when I became pregnant. Later, our son Johnny was born. Now that Johnny has turned 7 and started elementary school, parenting has settled down a bit. I thought it might be time to start working outside the home again, so I talked to my husband about it. He agreed right away, almost like he was waiting for me to suggest it. He probably thinks it would help our household budget if I started working, but he's been rushing me about it. Have you found something yet? He asks. Not yet. I'm looking carefully, I reply. Just find something, he says, seeming to want me to work no matter what. When I mention looking for a part-time job, he suggests, if you're going to work, why not full-time? If that seems too much, it doesn't have to be 5 days a week. How about 3 days, 8 hours each? Johnny isn't completely independent just because he's in elementary school. He comes home early, you know. But my husband insists Johnny can go to after-school programs. Full-time 5 days a week would be best, he keeps recommending. He seems to want me to work long hours. I can't complain since I was the one who said I wanted to work. But I haven't worked in years, so I'm nervous. Ultimately, I'd like to get used to it gradually, even if I do work full-time. I feel bad about quitting if I find it too hard after trying. So for now, I've decided to work part-time, about 20 hours a week. My husband complained that full-time would be better right away, but he reluctantly agreed when I said I'd consider it if I could handle it. I didn't think he cares so much about our finances. I found him a bit nagging about my job search, but I was also pleased. It's better to have a spouse who considers the finances than one who's unconcerned about it, especially in a long-term relationship. But I would later realize this perception was mistaken. A few months after I started my part-time job, a message came to my phone. Wondering who it was, I checked and saw a very familiar name. My former colleague and also my husband's current colleague. I thought it had been a long time and casually read the message. Then I was so shocked by the content that I raised my voice. What? What does this mean? This must be a joke. The message said, long time no see. I saw your husband the other day looking very friendly with some woman. I thought he might be cheating, so I sent you this message. The message was informing me of my husband's affair. It even thoughtfully included pictures. I was deeply shaken. The person in the photograph was clearly my husband, and the woman he was arm in arm with was a stranger to me. Even if it was a woman I knew, being arm in arm like that would be totally wrong. As I was reeling from the shock of the photographs, another message was sent. This woman is actually the division manager's daughter. She's an employee at our company, so she of course knows your husband's married. They're so brazen, aren't they? I wonder if all young folks are like this now. It was obvious from my colleague's message that she was enjoying this gossip. I replied with thanks and closed the messaging app. I never thought my husband would cheat on me, but when I thought about it, many things started to make sense, especially how he had been pushing me to work hard even when I wasn't settled with childcare. He must have thought it would give him more time to cheat. And today, he's supposedly away on an overnight business trip. It's probably a lie to spend quality time with his mistress. The next day, when my husband came home, I confronted him immediately. I knew that if we were going to divorce, I should keep a straight face and gather evidence, but I couldn't pretend everything was okay. "What is this all about?" I demanded, showing him the picture. My husband was taken aback for a moment but quickly recovered and defiantly responded, "Ah, if you know, then it can't be helped. It's exactly as you see." I was surprised. I had expected some kind of excuse. "The woman is the division manager's daughter, right?" I asked. "The division manager is destined to move up even higher in the company. You understand what I'm saying? To be blunt, I'd gain more from marrying this woman. It would guarantee my promotion. She's younger and prettier than you two," he said with a disdainful expression. I thought that if he cried and apologized, I wouldn't go as far as divorcing him because of our child Johnny. But this attitude of his, what was this? He didn't seem to feel guilty about cheating at all. He even brazenly compared me to his mistress, saying she was better than me. Was he really this kind of man? I was so disappointed. As I remained silent, he grew more confident and continued, "Well, that's how it is. I think we should divorce. It's a bit sooner than planned, but I was going to tell you eventually, so this is good timing." And so we divorced. After being told all that, I couldn't even pretend I didn't want to divorce. It was better for my mental health to quickly get the child support and divide the property and then divorce. He paid the child support at the amount I asked for, and he gave me almost all the property. Naturally, I got custody of Johnny. He was planning to marry the division manager's daughter. He seemed to feel that a little money was no big deal. When he left the house, he parted with the words, "Do your best to scrape by. Raising a child on a single income won't lead to wealth. Unlike you, I'm joining the ranks of the rich. The division manager's family is wealthy after all. We probably won't meet again, so struggle on at the bottom." Those were unbelievable words for a man who had a child of his own blood. I was relieved from the bottom of my heart to be rid of such a man. Although I felt relieved mentally, daily life was indeed hard. Even though I had received child support and property, I didn't have much savings, so I needed to work hard from now on. Working part-time alone just wasn't enough to get by. In the end, I had to quit my part-time job and started working full-time. I felt bad for Johnny, but after he finished elementary school, I had him go to after-school programs on his own. Unexpectedly, I found myself working full-time, and everything became challenging all at once. When I came home from my unfamiliar job, I had to do all the housework by myself. My life had completely changed from before. Time flew by as I was too busy every day. Before I knew it, 7 years had passed since my divorce. But no matter how busy I was, I adapted. Now that Johnny is in middle school, he can mostly take care of himself. I think he's grown into a very responsible boy compared to other boys his age, perhaps because I'm always so busy. He even does the cooking and laundry for me. Thanks to that, I've been free from housework and childcare. And for the past few years, I've had time for myself. Both my personal and working life are going very well. Now I can say it clearly, I'm certainly glad I broke up with that awful man. If I had continued to be married to him, I wouldn't have this life now. But one day, while my son and I were shopping at the local mall, I ran into that terrible guy. It was my ex-husband, George. I didn't notice him, but he started talking to me. "Hey, isn't that you, Lisa? Long time no see. You've really aged." "Is that what you say to someone you haven't seen in a while?" I snapped. A person with normal sensitivity would never say that to a woman. It was clear he hadn't grown at all as a person. "Huh, you're the one who's aged a lot. I didn't recognize you for a moment." Honestly, George had aged a lot. I hadn't seen him for 7 years, but it felt like he aged twice as much. His hair was thinning and his belly was out, showing a complete middle-aged figure. I thought talking to my ex-husband was a waste of time, so I tried to walk away, saying, "Oh well, long time no see. But I don't really have anything to say to you. See you later." But he wouldn't let me go. He stood in my way and started talking nonsense. Hey, don't be so cold. The family is all together again. Let's catch up for a bit." I didn't want to hear anything about his life. If there was one thing I'd like to complain about, it was that he stopped paying child support a few years after our divorce. Child support is not my right but Johnny's right. The fact that he could talk so openly in front of Johnny, who was owed that money, made me irritated. But George didn't care about my mood at all. He started talking about his recent life, which I didn't want to hear. After our divorce, I remarried. I married the daughter of the manager who was in that picture with me. Oh, he's not a manager anymore. He's an executive now. And I got promoted to manager. I'm definitely winning now. To be honest, I didn't care how much George had been promoted. It had nothing to do with me, and I wasn't envious. All I thought was, why are you bragging about not paying child support even after being promoted? He's such a cheap man to not even pay a few $1,000s a month even though he's winning. And to rub it in even more, George continued his bragging. Breaking up with you was the right choice. You and your son still look poor. I make $200,000 a year. In the end, George just wanted to brag about himself. He didn't even try to hear about our lives. I thought that any normal parent would be curious about their child's life. But he didn't even talk to Johnny, who was standing right in front of him. He's really a terrible father. Oh, that reminds me, let me introduce you to someone. Hey, George called over a woman who was looking at clothes in the distance. The woman came over, and I knew right away who she was. I had seen her in a picture before. It was George's new wife, Harriet. Meet my wife, Harriet. How about that? She's way more beautiful than you, isn't she? He said. What was he thinking? This woman stole my husband when we were married. I'm glad we're apart now. But back then, it was shocking, and I did resent it. I have no good impression of this woman at all. You'd think my ex-husband would know that, even though he's not the brightest. But he must be really looking down on us, not realizing how insulting this is. Oh, is that all? I don't have time. Bye-bye, I said, feeling extremely unpleasant. I didn't even glance at the woman, let alone greet her. Wait a minute, my ex-husband said, blocking my way again. Stop it. There's no point in hearing about your home life. Jealous because we look happy? You're not just poor in money, don't be bitter in your heart too. You'll only get more miserable. My ex-husband arbitrarily decided that I'm unhappy. Mind your own business. I'm perfectly happy, so leave me alone. The most unfortunate thing lately is being spoken to by you. Even though I said I was happy, my ex-husband didn't believe it at all and continued to worry about my situation. Well, happiness varies from person to person, but being poor isn't happy. Don't push yourself. It's probably impossible for you to remarry with those conditions. I'm worried about you as your ex-husband, you know. As he said this, his face showed an expression completely opposite to concern. He was making a complete fool of me. When I looked at the face of my ex-husband's wife standing next to him, she was also smirking, looking like she was making fun of me. I'll never be friends with this woman. She feels good by looking down on people. She's the worst kind of woman. I told you, you're way better. Have some confidence, George said, either sucking up to his current wife or praising her as the best compared to me. Well, he was promoted thanks to his current wife, so he's probably buttering her up whenever he can. He's really the worst man. You're really the lowest level of woman. I can't believe you were able to marry him. Harriet, my ex-husband's wife, insulted me even though we had just met. That's the worst kind of behavior. I wanted to leave the scene as soon as possible so I wouldn't retort, but my ex-husband stood in front of me, blocking my way. I'll tell you we're still in love, so the chance of getting back together is 0. Don't get your hopes up for something wrong, he said. He seemed to be having some wild delusion, thinking I was still attached to him even though it's been 7 years since our divorce due to his affair. His head was so full of fantasies that I couldn't say anything. When I was at a loss for words because of my ex-husband's ridiculous delusion, he seemed to think he was right. Hey, too shocked to say anything. Being a popular man is tough. What's popular about a middle-aged man's appearance? I was past anger and starting to feel sick. When I remained silent, my ex-husband tried to say something more, but Johnny interrupted him. Mom, can you fire this guy? Huh? My ex-husband was dumbfounded by Johnny's incomprehensible words. It seemed Johnny was very angry, calling me this guy instead of Dad. Well, it doesn't matter, but what do you mean? I'm not getting fired, am I? You're in middle school now, study properly. He talked down to Johnny too. It's unforgivable that he was making fun of my beloved son as well. I was about to explode with anger at my ex-husband when I heard a voice calling me. Hey, what's going on here? A man came over, calling out. My ex-husband froze when he saw the man's face. Why are you here, boss? He asked the man in front of him. I'm just here shopping with my family. Are you saying I shouldn't be here? No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way, but I was just wondering why you were talking to my ex-wife. Oh, that's natural. She's my current wife after all. What? Her? No, this is your wife, boss. I can't believe it. My ex-husband stammered. Actually, about 3 years ago, I remarried the CEO of my ex-husband's company. The CEO and I became close after my divorce when he approached me while I was shopping at the supermarket. Since I had previously worked at the same company as my ex-husband, I knew the CEO. The CEO knew that my ex-husband had an affair with the head of his department's daughter, leading to our divorce, and that he later married her. It seemed that the CEO was quite bitter about this as a fellow man, but he thought he couldn't meddle in an employee's private life until he saw me at the supermarket and impulsively spoke to me. I was very surprised since I knew the CEO, but I didn't think he would remember my face and name as just an ordinary employee. Perhaps he remembered me easily because I worked at the reception desk of the company. It seems your marriage didn't work out, but I'm sure you'll find someone better soon. CEO, I'm glad you remember me, but you don't have to worry about me. I'm fine. At that time, I had been divorced for less than a year, so I was somewhat putting on a brave face. But the CEO, with his vast life experience, saw right through my act and comforted me with kind words. Divorce takes more than 3 times the effort of marriage. Even if you divorce smoothly, it's tiring. I've never been divorced, but I felt utterly unmotivated when I lost my wife to death. When a man and woman who once loved each other part ways, that's just how it is. So you don't need to put on a brave face. The CEO knew the loneliness of ending a married life. While I was glad to have separated, I was also feeling a whirlpool of emotions like loneliness and emptiness at the time, so his words touched my heart. If talking to someone like me helps, call me anytime. I'll treat you to dinner whenever you like, he said, handing me his business card. I thought it would be too bold to contact him for about 2 years. But as time passed, I calmed down and wanted someone to talk to again. So I finally decided to call the CEO. Despite his busy schedule, the CEO made time for me and treated me to dinner. When I was an employee, the CEO was still a department head, and he had an unapproachable aura since he was the previous CEO's son. But once we had dinner together, I found him easy to talk to, like a nice uncle. Perhaps because I was no longer an employee, the CEO and I quickly became good drinking buddies. Then, about a year passed, and the CEO proposed to me with a serious look. You're kidding, Steve. Don't joke like that. I thought it was a joke since he mentioned it while we were drinking, but the CEO was serious. At first, I wanted to encourage you after your divorce, but being with you really calms me down. I haven't felt this way since I lost my wife. Honestly, I feel like I'm the one being healed now. If you're willing, let's spend the rest of our lives together. Give me a day to think about it, I said and consulted with my son. I don't mind. You should decide based on whether you like him or not. Mom. Since there was no particular opposition, I decided to marry the CEO. To be honest, I liked him. I thought he was just a drinking buddy, but I also felt truly healed when I was with him. We both felt comforted, so I thought there was no obstacle to living together. When I heard the story about the president's deceased wife, I really understood that he loved her. Every time I heard that story, I thought how happy I would be if I could marry someone who loved me like that. To be honest, I even felt a little jealous of his wife. And so we became a happily married couple. The president really dotes on my son Johnny as if he were his own. Perhaps it's because the president had no children with his previous wife, but they get along so well that they look like a real father and son. I truly am happy now, just as I told my ex-husband. My ex-husband's face turned pale, and he started trembling when he heard that I married the president. He never expected the husband of his poor ex-wife, who he looked down upon, to be the president. Dad, this man was mocking Mom. Fire him, Johnny tells the president about my ex-husband without mercy. Idiot. No, Johnny, what are you talking about? We were just chatting. My ex-husband tries to smooth things over, but it's clear to the president. You have a tendency to look down on people in the company. Johnny is probably telling the truth. I've heard some bad rumors about you from your subordinates. I think I'll investigate this, so be prepared. I never thought the president would take Johnny's words seriously and investigate the misdeeds within the company. My ex-husband apologizes to the president. I'm sorry, I might have been a bit harsh on your wife. Can you please hold off on the internal investigation? He's begging even in a crowded shopping mall, showing how much he doesn't want the investigation. But this is practically an admission of guilt. The president is not listening. No, I'm going to proceed. By the way, your close friend, the executive, has a bad reputation too. I'll investigate you both thoroughly. Upon hearing this, my ex-husband's wife also apologizes. No, it's fine if it's just him, but my dad has nothing to do with it. If you must do it, please do it to him only. Hearing that line, my ex-husband started arguing with his wife on the spot. What do you mean? You're planning to abandon me? Don't joke around. There are plenty of men like you. Of course my dad is more important. It's said that one should not interfere in lovers' quarrels, and it's completely shameful. We don't want to be associated with them. So we ignored the arguing ex-couple and left the store. Those selfish people will probably have trouble from now on, but it's their own fault. The president immediately organized a team to thoroughly investigate my ex-husband and the executive's work the next day. All the things that came out: harassment of subordinates, countless verbal abuses, favoritism, and worst of all, forcing clients to entertain them. It was an astonishing number of incidents happening over many years. Abusing a strong position to demand entertainment is totally inappropriate in this day and age. This attitude of exploiting their position for personal gain is completely out of line. My ex-husband and the executive were demoted and sent to a branch office in Nebraska. They probably knew this would happen, so they apologized again and again in the shopping mall. This means they knew they were doing wrong. Knowing and doing it anyway makes it malicious. They'll probably never get promoted again. According to the president, they both ended up resigning from the company. They were probably afraid of retaliation from the employees they had harassed and were now ordinary workers. However, it didn't end with just quitting. They were sued by the employees they had harassed. Since they were disliked by almost all the employees, there was a lot of evidence, and they completely lost in court. They were charged with enormous compensation and ended up in debt. The ex-husband's wife, whose family became poor, seems to have blamed her husband, and their marriage turned sour. They ended up divorcing soon after. Every day they argued, and the ex-husband took it out on his wife. So she might even sue him for damages, and the situation could become a legal quagmire. Seeing the downfall of my ex-husband makes me realize that it's best to live honestly and sincerely in this world. I was able to conceive a child with the president. I'm 42, so it's a late childbirth, but a healthy baby was born, so I'm relieved. Johnny seems very happy to become a big brother and takes good care of the baby, even feeding the baby milk every day. Steve is talking ahead of time, hoping that Johnny will grow up and help build the company. We're both getting older, so raising a child will be hard, but the fear flies away when I look at the baby's sleeping face. Thank you for being born. Mom's gonna work hard, I think, as I face the day.
I couldn't believe it when I found a letter from Diana in my mailbox. Diana had just passed away, and we had her funeral yesterday. She was always so kind to me, especially since I got married. We used to go out to eat and shop together, and we became close friends even though she was older than me. I was really sad when she suddenly passed away. Even after her funeral, it was hard to believe she was gone. So when I saw a letter from Diana, I was shocked. I hurried to read it and discovered something surprising. Diana had arranged for this letter to reach me after she passed away. She had asked the church's pastor to give it to me. In the letter, Diana told me to open a secret door in her closet at my in-laws' house. She explained how to do it and said I should go alone. I checked the time and knew everyone would be out. Jimmy, Diana's brother-in-law, his wife, and their kids were at school or work. So I went straight to my in-laws' house, used my key, and followed Diana's instructions. Luckily, the secret door opened, and inside, I found a message. It said, "My name is Olivia. I'm 35 years old, and I work as a web designer from home. 5 years ago, I married Fred, who is 4 years older than me. We were introduced by a friend, and we still have a great relationship. However, despite our desire for children, my husband Fred and I hadn't been able to conceive. Diana was always supportive during this tough time. She would tell me not to worry, and she often cheered me up by suggesting we go to a new waffle shop by the station to lift my spirits. Diana's encouragement helped me overcome my worries about not having children. Even though I still wanted kids, Fred and I decided not to pursue intensive fertility treatments and instead hoped for things to happen naturally. Fred traveled a lot for work, so when he was away, Diana and I would spend time together, going out for meals or shopping. We became good friends despite our age difference. Diana lived nearby, in the same house as my brother-in-law Jimmy and his family, who had 3 children. While Diana got along well with them, Jimmy and his wife weren't as understanding. They would often make hurtful remarks about our childlessness. Brittany, Jimmy's wife, would say things like, "Olivia, still no kids? We have 3 adorable ones, you know. It's like you're dishonoring your parents by not having any. Just cut ties with Diana already." Jimmy would join in, adding insults like, "Brittany's right." Well, Fred has always been a bit of a loser. Even if you had kids, they'd probably be losers too. At first, Fred and I would defend ourselves against their hurtful comments. Since Jimmy and his wife never listened to us and continued with their hurtful behavior, Fred and I started avoiding them as much as possible. They were awful to us but pretended to be nice in front of Diana, so she never knew their true nature. We didn't want to worry Diana, so we never told her about Jimmy and his wife's behavior. One holiday, Fred, Diana, and I planned to go out for a meal. We went to my in-laws' house at the agreed time, expecting Diana to be ready at the front door as usual. But this time, she wasn't there. We waited for a while, thinking she'd come out soon. After 5 minutes, then 10, we started to worry. Diana wasn't answering her phone either. Getting anxious, we rang the doorbell, but there was no response. We used our spare key to get inside. "Hey, Mom," Fred called out, but there was still no answer. Feeling uneasy, we searched the house and found Diana collapsed in her room. I screamed and ran to her, while Fred called an ambulance. The house was empty, as Jimmy and his family must have been out. The ambulance arrived in about 8 minutes, but sadly, Diana passed away. It was a stroke. Fred and I couldn't believe she was suddenly gone from our lives. We cried so much, it felt like we'd never stop. Despite our grief, we had to prepare for the funeral. We couldn't stay sad and withdrawn forever. The funeral was small, with close relatives and family. Jimmy, Diana's eldest son, acted as the family representative. We coordinated with Jimmy for the arrangements, but I sensed he wasn't truly mourning Diana's death. At the funeral, he fulfilled his duties as a family representative, but it seemed minimal. After a brief chat with the relatives, I called for Fred as I had left the gathering abruptly. The relatives seemed displeased and looked at Jimmy with disapproval. At the meal with relatives after the funeral, Jimmy was the first to sit down and didn't bother getting up even when Fred greeted him. He just drank beer, and Brittany did the same. Fred and I hurriedly went around thanking the relatives for coming and sharing memories of Diana. Jimmy and Brittany's children were too busy playing with their handheld gaming devices and laughing loudly, which seemed inappropriate for a post-funeral gathering. None of Jimmy's family seemed to mourn Diana's death. The relatives sensed this and avoided speaking with Jimmy and his wife, choosing to share farewells and memories with Fred and me instead. Despite the relatives' changed attitudes, Jimmy's family's behavior remained the same. They kept ordering beer, discussing inheritance and vacation plans, which felt disrespectful considering how much Diana had done for them. I couldn't help but feel disdain toward Jimmy's family. The next day, Fred left early to take care of formalities alone. At home, I checked the mailbox for the newspaper and noticed an envelope inside. I picked it up and was surprised to see it was addressed to me from Diana. How could there be a letter from Diana? I went back to the living room to open it. Inside the letter was something unexpected. Diana had arranged with the church's pastor to send this letter to me after her passing. It included instructions to open a closet in Diana's room at my in-laws' house, find and open a hidden door within the closet, and contact a lawyer Diana had dealt with. The final instruction was to ensure I carefully opened the closet alone and read Diana's letter repeatedly. Though Diana had slender handwriting, It was bold and forceful. Her powerful signature seemed to embody her essence. Deeply moved, I checked the clock. It was 9 a.m., and the in-laws' house should be empty now. I quickly got ready and headed there. The children would be at school, and Jimmy and Brittany likely left early. I had seen on Brittany's social media that they were going out together, despite it being the day after Diana's funeral. If the post was accurate, no one would be at the house. I needed to go now. I might not get another chance. Using my key, I entered the house slowly. The absence of Diana's welcoming smile made my heart ache. Pushing back my pain, I went into Diana's room, opened the closet, and reached for the hidden door as instructed in the letter. Thankfully, it opened without a problem. I sighed with relief and checked what was inside. There were the items Diana mentioned in the letter and an additional document. I was overcome with Diana's love and almost cried, but I knew I had to leave quickly. It would be disastrous if someone came back and found me there, especially since Diana's letter instructed that I do this alone. I took the documents with me and returned home. I contacted the lawyer mentioned in Diana's letter to inform them of her passing. Just as I was about to contact Fred and Jimmy's family to plan a gathering, I received a message from Brittany. She said they had important news and wanted everyone to gather at the in-laws' house this week. What could Brittany possibly want to discuss? I had no idea. Feeling skeptical but uneasy about refusing, I decided to accept Brittany's suggestion to gather at the in-laws' house over the weekend. When Fred and I arrived, I felt tense. Jimmy and Brittany had unpleasant smirks on their faces, and their children were not around, likely left with someone else. As soon as we sat down, they presented us with a document. "This is Diana's will," Brittany declared confidently. The signature on the will was indeed Diana's, and it stated that all her assets were to be inherited by Jimmy and his wife. It says here that we, the couple, are to inherit the entire estate. So you guys won't get a single cent from the inheritance. Too bad? Jimmy laughed vulgarly, his face twisted in an ugly grin. Fred was perplexed, but I silently stood up and returned with Mr. Smith, the lawyer who had been waiting outside. Jimmy and Brittany were confused by the sudden appearance of the lawyer, and Fred was surprised, not knowing the lawyer had been waiting outside. "This is Mr. Smith, a lawyer who Diana had been close with for many years," I introduced briefly. Jimmy and Brittany's expressions turned to anger. "A lawyer? Why did you bring someone like that here?" Jimmy shouted. "It was Diana's instruction. She wanted Mr. Smith to help with the property settlement agreement to make things smoother," I explained. "We don't need a lawyer." Jimmy slammed his hand on the table, gesturing to Diana's will. Mr. Smith calmly raised his hand. "Are you certain this document was entirely written by Diana herself?" he asked. "Of course it is," Jimmy replied loudly. Mr. Smith shook his head sadly. "This cannot be recognized as a valid will. A holographic will must be entirely handwritten by the person themselves." Mr. Smith pointed out that while the word will at the beginning and Diana's signature at the end were handwritten, the rest of the document looked like it had been printed from a computer. The once noisy room fell silent. In a panic, Jimmy reached for the will. But that changed nothing. The printed text remained unchanged. "Could this will have been forged?" Mr. Smith asked calmly. Jimmy and Brittany visibly trembled. "What are you talking about? We would never do such a thing." "Why are you being so paranoid? And even if it was forged, what then?" Brittany responded anxiously. "Forging a will is a serious crime," Mr. Smith explained. Jimmy and Brittany's faces turned pale. They were flustered, shouting incoherently and making excuses. At this moment, Mr. Smith delivered the crucial information. Olivia had a notarial will, rendering the presented will invalid. Jimmy and Brittany were astonished, their eyes wide open. "What's that?" "We weren't informed," they explained. The letter from Diana that I had received mentioned that a notarial will was hidden behind the secret door in the closet. We didn't know about it until we received the letter from Diana recently. Diana revealed the location of this will in the letter, which contained not only practical matters, but also explanations about why the notarial will was made and why it was disclosed to me. Diana had been feeling her health decline recently and prepared a will, suspecting that Jimmy and his spouse might tamper with it. Despite my assumption that Diana was completely unaware of Jimmy and his spouse's true nature, it appears Diana had some inkling of their greed for money. The notarial will stated that the estate was to be equally divided between Jimmy and Fred. Jimmy and Brittany were in shock, their eyes wide with astonishment. At that moment, Jimmy seemed to have an epiphany and exclaimed loudly, "That's right. But the beneficiary of Mom's life insurance is me, isn't it? It must be set to me, the eldest son." I announced in a cold voice, in addition to the notarial will, Diana also entrusted me with a life insurance policy. I am named as the beneficiary. Inside the hidden door of the closet, there was not only the notarial will, but also the life insurance policy. Jimmy and his wife stared at the documents in disbelief. "I didn't hear about this. I don't know anything about this," Jimmy protested, banging on the table. "It's normal not to be notified when the beneficiary of a life insurance policy is changed," I replied calmly. Fred, looking puzzled, asked me, "When did Mom entrust Olivia with these?" I had no idea. Did she not want to tell me? I smiled at Fred and explained, "It was written in the letter from Diana. She wanted to tell you as well, but it was safer to entrust it to just me to avoid Jimmy and his wife catching on." "I see. You and Mom were really close after all," Fred remarked. While Fred and I were talking, Brittany interrupted us hysterically. "I won't accept this. Why should you, whom never even showed Diana your children, inherit her estate? This is ridiculous. I can't accept this at all." "That's right. You childless ingrates don't deserve Mom's estate. We lived with her just for the inheritance. It's outrageous to split it. The entire estate should be ours," Jimmy exclaimed angrily. Brittany was red-faced and yelling, continuing with her selfish claims. "We have 3 children, you know. As compensation for not giving Diana grandchildren, you should relinquish the entire estate to us for our children's future. We who gave her 3 grandchildren are far more worthy than you, so the estate should all be ours." Unfazed by Brittany's fervor, I calmly stated, "What you're saying is nonsensical. Please calm down, Brittany." Infuriated by my composed demeanor, Brittany yelled, "Your smug attitude is infuriating. Just give us the money, useless woman." She then lunged at me. Fred and Mr. Smith quickly intervened, but Brittany managed to punch me in the head before they could stop her. "Ouch!" I cried out. Brittany's hands, adorned with several large rings, felt like brass knuckles, causing a dull pain that made me cry out, "Stop it." Fred and Mr. Smith pulled Brittany away, but she still unrestrainedly reached out to me again in her frenzy, demanding, "Give me the inheritance. I deserve it all more than you do. I have 3 children after all." Brittany's eyes were bloodshot, her face demonic. Jimmy encouraging Brittany in such a manner enraged Fred, who called the police. "Go on, do it," he urged. Soon after their arrival, Fred and Mr. Smith explained the situation to the police. Jimmy and his spouse were then taken away by the police. Left behind, Fred and I thanked Mr. Smith and decided it was best for him to go home for the day. What was supposed to be just a discussion about creating a property settlement ended up being a terrible ordeal. Fred and I solemnly agreed to visit later with some sweets as an apology. Fred was very concerned about me being hit by Brittany, but when I told him that the headache had completely subsided, he seemed relieved. Amidst the tumultuous developments, I muttered to myself, that was quite an intense experience. Then, Fred shared his thoughts with me. "You know, Brittany always makes a big deal about her kids. She's always said how great she is for giving Mom 3 grandchildren. Don't you think she's too obsessed with money?" "Indeed," I replied. Brittany had always overly emphasized her children, and her greed for money earlier was intense. "Well, yes," Fred continued. "Even with the inheritance, Diana wanted to divide it equally. Brittany's desire to claim everything was abnormal, and her terrifying demeanor while hitting me was chilling. Fred fell silent, lost in thought. "What's wrong? Is something bothering you?" I asked, unsure of what Fred was getting at. "Yeah, there's something I've been thinking about," Fred replied. "I want to suggest to my brother that we should do DNA testing for his 3 children." I was taken aback by Fred's unexpected suggestion. DNA testing. Yes, and I'm thinking of suggesting an investigation into Brittany's background too. Something just doesn't sit right with me. It's just a hunch. Although I felt it might be unnecessary, I knew Fred's instincts had often been right in the past. "All right, if you think so, let's propose it to Jimmy." When Fred brought up the matter with Jimmy, Jimmy ridiculed and yelled fiercely at him. "Just because you can't have kids, don't go doubting mine," Jimmy protested, snatching the DNA testing information from Fred as they parted, indicating some underlying concern on his part. The first results from the DNA testing of Jimmy and the children revealed that the 2 youngest were not biologically related to Jimmy. I had my suspicions about the youngest since they didn't really resemble either parent, but the middle child too. Fred was speechless. Perhaps motivated by the results, Jimmy also conducted a thorough investigation into Brittany's background. It was revealed that Brittany had relationships with multiple men even before marrying Jimmy. Moreover, she had recently been discovered by the wives of her lovers, who then demanded compensation from her. Brittany, who spent more time at home than Jimmy, had been meticulously hiding this correspondence. The total amount of compensation demanded was far beyond what could be covered by Brittany's salary or savings. As a result, Brittany was desperately trying to secure Diana's entire estate for herself. Naturally, this led to a violent confrontation between Jimmy and Brittany, throwing objects at each other and engaging in a physical fight. Their confrontation escalated to the point where blood was shed, and the neighbor, unable to tolerate the noise any longer, called the police. The arriving officers ended up taking both parties away. Already under scrutiny for forging Diana's will, now they had committed assault as well. When the police investigated the 2, it seems they uncovered numerous other offenses, including theft and harassing wealthy individuals. As a result, Jimmy and his spouse were sentenced to prison. Fred and I were deeply troubled about what to do with the 3 children left behind. With Diana gone, we were their closest relatives. After considering taking in Brittany and Jimmy's children, we ultimately decided against it. The children had fully absorbed their parents' attitudes, openly disparaging us as incapable and childless. The eldest, Ricky, who was 14, was old enough to understand right from wrong, and even the youngest, at 7, should have had some sense of appropriate behavior. Yet each time they saw us, all 3 sneered and hurled insults. Even with their parents' arrest and being at the heart of the turmoil, their attitudes remained unchanged. "We'd be doing you childless losers a favor by letting you raise us," Ricky remarked. Faced with such hostility, we felt neither love for the children nor the belief that we could raise them to be decent individuals. In the end, we contacted Brittany's parents and decided to cease all involvement with the children. It seemed the children themselves understood our firm stance, as Ricky remarked. "We'd rather stay in a rundown house than stay with a useless couple without kids." We felt this was for the best, especially since they expressed such sentiments. It's worth noting that we never disclosed to the children the fact that the 2 younger ones were not biologically related to Jimmy. Whether to reveal the truth or not is something we've left to Jimmy, Brittany, and their relatives. Fred and I decided to use the estate Diana left us to make a fresh start by moving to a distant location. It was a place rich in nature with lots of greenery, and both Fred and I were able to fit in quickly. There's a charming waffle shop near our new home, and every time we pass by, I think of Diana and how I would have loved to take her there if she were still alive. Soon after we moved, I was blessed with the child I had long wished for. When I used the pregnancy test and saw the positive result, I couldn't help but shout in surprise and overwhelming joy. Later, when I went to the obstetrician-gynecologist and had it confirmed by the doctor. I was assured that I was indeed pregnant without a doubt. Fred and I embraced, both of us shedding tears of joy. I couldn't help but think how happy Diana would have been if she were still alive to witness this. Additionally, the business plan I have been quietly preparing is progressing well. Both Fred and I are working hard for our forthcoming child, leading fulfilling lives filled with happiness.